What is up, everybody? This is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the Peripheral, AI, climate, and the East-West struggle. This will be the second time I talk about the Peripheral on this channel, so I just have a lot. I have a lot to talk about. I have a lot of thoughts and feels and things to say about this. So I'm going to do another video about this in the last month. But anyways, the Peripheral is a show on. It's on Prime, right? Or no, where is it? Is it on Prime? Yeah. The Peripheral is we get it on a Plex, but anyways, Peripheral is a science fiction show based on the original book by William Gibson, the cyberpunk godfather, and so it's a show that's dealing with I'm going to recap the entire synopsis and the storyline each time I do another video. I don't know how many more I'm going to do, but I do want to talk about some other things that happened in the show. And I was like thinking more about the show, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, number one, I actually found that the show, to my own mind, was better than the book in many ways. Now, there's a lot of things that the book does that the show doesn't do. First of all, it's a book, so you can't really have a beautiful prose scrolling. I was joking with Holly, like you can't really have like beautiful prose like scrolling up the screen because William Gibson, I mean, I'm definitely like a lot of my media consumption and my brain is full of a lot of Gibson and cyberpunk works. It's skewed in that direction because I spent more time reading. I met Holly, my moderator and partner at the Silver Spook Cooperative, and partner in creating replicants of ourselves and raising them, creating mini metoid sentient machines, also known as humans, versions of ourselves. Holly and I actually met speaking or talking to each other on this William Gibson message board. For fans of his cyberpunk works, including Neuromancer, the Sprawl trilogy, Burning Chrome. These are like Johnny Mnemonic, the thing that predated the Matrix, Cyberpunk 2077, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, all the cyberpunk world. We met like on the message board for the fans of the books that spawned the entire cyberpunk universe, basically, and so. A lot of this stuff is like it's hard. I went back and like was checking out. There's a William Gibson message board space now. We're like checking out what's going on there. Most of the people are like 90 years old. I'm just kidding. it's like the digital equivalent of like the Ensure and people in rocking chairs. But for us old millennials and Gen X and boomers, it's the demographic skews to like 40 to 80. Actually, I know several people have passed on. They would be 90 to 100 now that were formerly on the board. Actually, some of them actually helped me get my first start in writing. So we do owe some to the cyberpunk Gibson board lineage. Also, the William Gibson. Just really quickly, because I gotta have ads. I'm not very good at marketing myself. I'm not a marketing specialist. I don't have a degree in mass communication for capitalist profit, but the William Gibson interview that I did grab, I think it's like the first thing. See, I'm bad at this. I don't really prepare for these streams, but very, very hardly. But William Gibson, who wrote The Peripheral, this is the interview that I did with him. This was from 4 years ago, and it was put together because like we have friends within the William Gibson community that's helped hook this up. I mean, specifically it's Louis. If you know who that is, you know who that is. If you don't know who that is, you don't know who that is. Anyways, Holly and this other William Gibson William Gibson fan, and he's also a friend of William Gibson as well. Helped film this whole entire helped film the Silver Spook podcast with William Gibson. Which of course, like this dude is like the original writer of the original cyberpunk works. I mean, Neuromancer, the Peripheral is a show based on his works, right? So it's very much like it's very weird when I talk about this stuff. It's like It's like talking about family members almost in a weird way, but it's also like it's also a show starring, it's a show with prime time, release. It's on Amazon Prime. It's got I can never remember her name, the girl from Kick Ass. What's her name? Um, yeah. What is it? Chloe Grace Moretz. I can never remember people's names when I need to remember them, man. I can remember everything else except people's names. I'm like, I just play Mad Libs with people's names. I'm gonna be like, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Jackie Chan in Whiteface. No, it's executive producers Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, and it stars Chloe Grace Moretz. And it's from the makers of Westworld. So if you like, Westworld is a very cyberpunky, Black Mirror-y. It's like a Black Mirror-y cyberpunk sort of creation. Which and to be honest, like I actually, like Westworld. I watched the whole first Westworld, which stars what's her face, also with three names. Three names. There's too many names, man. You gotta just choose two. Just choose two and be done with it. What's Mrs. Three Names? What's Mrs. Three Names? Three Jane. No, that's another cyberpunk reference. Evan, Rachel, Wood. Y'all sound like serial killers. Y'all white girls starring in my cyberpunk movies and shows. Y'all sound like serial killers. I cannot remember your names. Anyways, so that was the comedy. There's the rock paper scissors joke for you. Silver Spook can't remember names of the stars of the shows I'm trying to talk about. Anyways, so I have to yell at Holly. You can hear me yelling at Holly. That's my augment. That's my meat space bio memory augmentation. Is Holly yelling back the actual thoughts that I need that I have forgotten. That's the future for you. Anyways, hey, what's up, big deal? The Peripheral is a show starring Chloe Grace Moretz, with the showrunners and the creators also worked on Westworld, starring Evan Rachel Wood. Anyways, all right, now that we got that out of the way and everybody has clicked off of this video and we've been demonetized because I said the word white, which is illegal. Anyways, we'll get you banned for racism anywhere on all the mega tech platforms. Anyways, so the Peripheral AI climate and the East-West struggles. It's a book, and I was having all these thoughts this week because I was thinking about the book in the context of a lot of things. Like I'm constantly like looking at many different sources of information all around the world, like from the East and the West, which is often like it's so conflicting and so it causes psycho intellectual whiplash when you like read a article coming out of somewhere east of Ukraine and then another or west of Taiwan, west of Japan, and then you read another one coming out of east of Hawaii. It's like, it's anyways. So but it's kind of like there's a lot of differences there, but then also in the context of things like artificial intelligence, right? Climate change, the COP27, right? The international panel on the climate change happened this week. I'm gonna get to that one in a second, but before that, so I just wanted to say so this is I was like we were watching the latest episode. This screenshot reminded me of what was happening. There's a lot of frames like this, and as we were talking about it, like the Peripheral, I as I said, I already rehashed the entire plot like the last time I made a video about this, right? But there's a line in the book. One thing I want to say though about the Peripheral is that there are many lines, there are many scenes. There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of places and characters that were just omitted from the book, and then much more was added in, right? So the Peripheral is written by you get something that looks cooler on the screen while I talk about it. The Peripheral is actually written by it's based on the novel by Gibson, but it's actually written by somebody else. The actual final show. There's multiple writers, but I think there's like a lead writer. Vincenzo Natali, also famously, the director, Vincenzo, was trying to produce Neuromancer. He was one of the directors slated to produce the original cyberpunk book, Neuromancer. he's one in a long line. Neuromancer is like the it is like the Maltese Falcon. No, it's like the what is it? It's like the Mona Lisa of cyberpunk. It's like the but it's also like the uh it's the unfilmable cyberpunk work. It's the original cyberpunk work, but it's like unfilmable. And the more we think about it, the more like it's apparent why. Because uh you know the way that Gibson does his writing, I'll just get something up. Like Neuromancer, the original book, like it looks really cool in the mind's eye, like the little homunculus, tiny human being that projects, the that is projecting the images, right? As you're reading the text, as your brain is converting words and sentences, like the tiny little doll dash e artificial intelligent image generator in your mind that converts sentences into mental images, right? The way that AI displaces all of the world's artists and directors by converting some hack writers or just random executive producers' text into 3D moving images soon. It already converts 2D images. I was actually playing around with AI art generators earlier today. I made a cyberpunk Hawaii with robotic airships and pina coladas and Elon on fire. I actually have an AI generated image of that. I'm not going to share it here because I don't want to plug that generator, because otherwise I won't have a job soon as an artist and a game developer. But anyways, inside your head, right, when you're putting together the sentences, right, for Neuromancer, it looks really great. Like, the sky above the port was the color of television tuned to a dead channel, right? It's like if you put that into a DALL-E generator, right, it will probably give you like a Gibson book cover, But it's kind of like in your head, right? It looks really cool. And there's lots of other sentences that a lot of them are like there's lots of, Rats was a bartender with a cyber arm. He had his in the age of affordable beauty, his ugliness was heraldic, right? And so it's talking about plastic surgery. It's talking about technology, the biological modification. Plastic surgery was hot on the market and affordable to mass number of people in the 80s. It's kind of like, it's still not accessible to everyone. The Brazilian butt lift and the boob jobs and resculpting your face with plastic surgery so you look like Tom Cruise, et cetera, which also has, of course, eugenics properties in it, which Johnny Mnemonic in the Burning Chrome short story collection dealt with. All that kind of stuff is like, the way he writes the sentences is technology, art, science, history, philosophy, and beautiful like metaphors are all like jam-packed into these sentences. It's very like visually interesting. There's a lot of beautiful set pieces, but they're all in sentence format, his teeth was a webwork of East European steel and brown decay. So you're it's like he's talking about history and politics, right? East Europe, and then the decay, and also the bartender's mouth, all at the same time. It's very techno poetically densely packed. But the problem with the Gibson writing is that when you want to convert that into a film, number one, the plot is very thin. Actually, let's be real. Like, the plot is for the first 50 pages of Neuromancer, there's all these beautiful images, and it talks about economics, and it was like a bored researcher in economics had his the joystick turned up to 11 and was watching high speed evolution in the marketplaces of Night City. It's like there's lots of like discussion of lots of different science, technology, engineering, culture, art, and it's like somebody threw a bomb into like a large university's campus. Don't do that. I don't want that will be a TLS violation. I don't encourage anyone to do that. That's actually that terroristic act, and that's not what we would. Although he does talk about terrorism later on, like the Panther Moderns, which is the Black Panther cross with postmodernism. Anyways, in Neuromancer. Anyways, it's like you're learning about all. It's like there's lots and lots and lots and lots of cool images and information and ideas just jam packed into a very small space in the text. But then the problem is when you try to convert that, it's mostly images, and then while you're hearing all these cool sentences, there's just a dude in a bar getting a beer, and then he walks out of the bar, goes into a gun shop, tries to rent a gun, can't rent the gun, then he goes into some import exporter, which has very cool connections in Hong Kong and it's all spy novel bullshit basically, but it's like it looks even cooler than the best Tom Clancy, which is not very good, and Jack Ryan with slightly less imperialistic characteristics, which is nice, but it's like there's not that much plot going on. There's a lot of like really cool ideas, but not much. Anyway, so I don't want to belabor that. So when you try to convert the Gibson cyberpunk novels, right, like Neuromancer, into or the Peripheral, really, or the Sprawl trilogy, the what is it, the Bridge trilogy, Virtual Light, All Tomorrow's Parties, Aidoru. Speaking of East West, we're gonna get to that. Don't worry about it. Asian cultural appropriation and anti-Asian stereotypes, but all of the books, they kind of follow that pattern, and then it's very difficult to produce shows and movies, visual medium, right, that are interesting to watch for 2 hours to 10-15 hours for a TV show, right? Like The Peripheral is a 15-hour, I don't know, 10 hours maybe TV show. It's hard to, if you just have, cool dudes, right, walking around. Let me see if I get the Neuromancer original cover like this. Yeah. If you just have people who are wearing really stylish clothes, right? Now in the 80s, very stylish clothes made pink and purple hair, using a guitar, like a computer keyboard turned into a guitar. Think of Conquer. And the sleeveless jean jacket. Everybody had eye blistering levels of illegal colors, like FF0000 red, in HTML code. It just it's very eye searing. That's like it's simultaneously one of the endearing but also kind of off-putting for some people's tastes. But everything looked really cool, and it either looked cool in the 80s or the 90s in your head, but then when you try to convert that into a show, it's just people looking cool, basically posering around. They're it's like an eternal catwalk strut, plus like a TED talk on history and politics, plus like a Dashiell Hammett, or like a London detective, like, I don't know, Sherlock, doing some Sherlock-ish stuff. It's a kind of combination of noir, a cyberpunk, not 80s runway, and then an economics or semiotics paper dropped in here and there. So it's kind of like it makes it very difficult to turn that into a show that's entertaining to watch for long periods of time, because there's not that much going on, right? It's like what the sentence in Neuromancer, right? One sentence in Neuromancer, it's like the set piece, right? So when you're walking, because he might spend 3 pages describing some scenes, but that's only 2 seconds, right? It's just like, okay, here is the sidewalk and the restaurant, okay, and here's the bar. Okay, we see the bar. Okay, now what happens, right? But not a lot happens, right? A drunken Australian grunts, a tall African in a naval uniform, with his face ridged with tribal scars, basically does nothing. He's just that would be like a split second in a scene, right? And it's all this time spent on that stuff, and it's just not enough there's not enough there in terms of story. I mean, because to have the movie and the TV shows and the plot, you have to have story, you have to have characters, you have to have more things happening per second, right? It can't just be a series of really cool shots of neat clubs, right? Like in The Peripheral, there's the coffee shop where there's dancing robot girls that spin around to create a quantum super tinfoil hat, for rich, specifically Russian oligarchs and the big time billionaire players in London to talk in, right? And so it's like that's a cool bar where you have robot girls dancing in a circle. It looks really cool, but that's like 2 seconds, you know. Anyways, but that's I'm kind of just I think I've made that point. So like in the Peripheral, they have to add more into the show. They have to add more into the show in terms of writing story. The characters like Flynn, the country bumpkin in southeast United States rural area. She has to kind of have extra to do. There's more than a Neuromancer, I would say, in the Peripheral. 80s Gibson's 80s work as Neuromancer. The Peripheral is written in the 2010s, right? But it's still like there needs to be a bit more. He does a little bit more of the detective heist back and forth stuff in the later books, I would say. But there needs to be even more, right, for the show. So anyways, that's a long preamble to say, like, in the Peripheral, I appreciate all the things that they cut, and the things that, because the things that they cut are things that, like one of the things that Holly and I were always talking about is Ash gets a lot of anti-goth hate. You probably saw Ash is the character in the center here in the show. Ash is the character. But fun fact: the actor that plays Ash, the environmentalist goth girl, who is also a tech lead in the for Russian oligarchs. Katie Leung actually played the Harry Potter, the show of which we do not speak, that Turf created wizard book, right? Katie Leung actually played Cho Chang, which is already kind of a racist name. It just sounds like it's definitely what a white billionaire hack authoress would call an Asian girl character, Cho Chang. Anyways, but Cho Chang from the Harry Potter movies is playing Ash, and Cho Chang, Katie Leung. We actually watched a Jackie Chan movie called last night called Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan, called what was it called? The Foreigner. Yeah. That's one of the few other things that Katie Leung was in. Yeah, this one. Actually, I was like, I haven't seen Pierce Brosnan. I see Pierce Brosnan. All I'm thinking of is 007. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, where is my N64 controller? I want to shoot someone with a PP7 in 64-bit glory with a maximum of 300 polygons on screen. It's like 1990s eldritch, like millennials who are all walking with a cane, right, and have like thumb arthritis because of how many buttons we mashed on Super Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox controllers, right? And we're all like, I see Pierce Brosnan's face, I'm just thinking GoldenEye. You're right, you know what I'm saying? But no, Pierce Brosnan is actually Irish. I had no idea until like very recently. I'm like, what? You're Irish? That's not even in English. Is that what is that? Okay, that's not the name of this. I'm sorry, I got the wrong image. What am I talking about? So, anyways, my point is that actually this movie actually is pretty based though. In some ways, Jackie Chan, when he said, "I hate the United," I mean, speaking of the Sino-Anglo split or East-West struggle, Jackie Chan actually said somewhere around 2012, like, the United States is a terrible country for multiple reasons, including he's actually from Hong Kong, right? And as he watched the way that Mike Pompeo, U.S. State Department, U.S. Imperial Forces, the National Endowment for Democracy, backing far-right elements in his home region of China, he was very disgusted, and he basically said, I hate the United States, and he never made any more movies in the United States after that. So that's a little bit the East-West split right there. But in The Foreigner, I actually find it interesting. It's set in London, right? And so Katie Leung, who actually Katie Leung, I mean, this is a bit of a diversion, but I promise I want to tie this back in. Katie Leung, who played Cho Chan in London, right, or in the UK in Harry Potter, which itself has obviously we're looking at J.K. Rowling nowadays with increasing cringe, justifiably. But Katie Leung almost quit acting after she played Cho Chang in the early 2000s because of so much of the anti-Asian hatred in Britain, in the UK, right? Um, After Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter, after Katie Leung says she was told, to deny she was target of racist attacks, right? So speaking again, speaking. I mean, this is not science fiction. This is not like, oh, in some right hypothetical dystopian future, people will be deemed subhuman and told to cover that up because of their skin color and eye shapes, right? No, this is what happened, right? This is just being Asian in, not even in the U.S. This is being Asian in Europe, being Asian in in Britain, right? Katie Leung is actually Scottish. Katie Leung's parents are both also from Hong Kong originally, and then they moved into Scotland, and so Katie was born and raised in there, right? Speaking of, east to west split. She's been in both places. Her parent she has family had gone back and forth. But in the West, she was 16 when she was cast as Cho Chang in the film franchise, and she found racist comments about her on the website dedicated to Harry Potter fans, right? She opened up about being the subject of racist attacks as a teenager from the franchise fans, being advised to deny them in interviews, right? So how weird is that? So it's like, you have all these but if you are somebody who is, it's not, it's obviously the kind of racism that happens. The black and the Asian and the other experiences are not identical, obviously, but as I'm a native Hawaiian, right? And basically nobody ever said Silver Spook stop talking about Hawaiian stuff when I worked in the United States, with the U.S. occupied Hawaii, or was in the West Coast of the United States. I've been all over the U.S. I visited all the East. I've been in New York. I've been in Central U.S. My family all over, right? They're all Asian and Pacific Islander family, by the way, right? Some of them live in Indiana. Some of them live in the East Coast. Some of them live on the West Coast, right? And nobody ever said to me directly, stop saying there's racism against Hawaiians and Asians in America directly, but they always imply that. It's always implied. You could do a lot better for yourself in this career as a programmer. You could escalate your earning prospects at this software company, this technology company, this bank, or this whatever you're working for, this university, right? You're gonna get your grant more if you just appease what the West wants to think about themselves when they think about you. So tell them what they want you to think, right? Just say, like, it's okay to Long when it's like, oh, I had such a great time as an Asian Scottish person, as an Asian person in the UK. I had such a great time making the Harry Potter film, and everyone was so understanding. And please put me in the next Harry Potter film. Please put me in Hunger Games. Or please put me in. I would love to be in the Avengers. I just love everything that Kevin Feige or whatever the fuck his name is, and I love Iron Man, and I love Chris Pratt and Chris Pine and all the Chris's. I can't keep track of all of your white same face potato, Mr. Potato Head with slightly different shades of blue eyes that star in all of your highest grossing films, Marvel and Disney. I would just love to be in a Disney movie. If you say that, right, then if you tell white people what they want to hear, if you tell Western people what they want to hear about who they are, right, then you can accelerate your career. And then they suggest, the agents will tell you, because the agents are like, well, I would like to keep having a job taking 5% or whatever percent of each movie deal that we cut. And so I want you to keep getting work. So just tell the studios, tell the British, tell J.K. Rowling that she's a very good, progressive, not racist person, and definitely in the right when she believes that sex is biological, whatever. And turf is, just go along with that, because if you go along with it, your career will do very well. And so, and she almost quit acting after this. Anyway, and so I mean, and so that's another part where there's that's part of that's part of the East West split, right? Now that's not artificial intelligence and cyberpunk and cool stuff, but if we're going if we want to use the again like if we want to use the word cyberpunk, I feel like just like if you want to be technically accurate, if you want, just say we're cyber suit or we're cyber bougie, just say we're cyber the man, we're cyber capitalists, right? We're just cyber racists, right? But when you say you're cyberpunk, how do you not deal with the actual oppression in the world, right? Fighting against oppressive entities, right? Ostensibly, if we're not talking about the racism and all of these things. And so that's why I'm like playing. I'm talking about that because that's the positionality. I mean, because that is a thing that you're asked to do, which I don't do in things like obviously I don't suppress that in games like Neofeud, right, which is an anti-racist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist game from a native Hawaiian perspective in the cyberpunk genre. And so anyway, but you know my take on that. And so I mean that's actually why I made Neofeud, is because of stuff like that. Part of it is like, hey, I like this Neuromancer, hey, I like the Peripheral. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I love the tech, I love the storytelling, all the whodunit, and there's all this like, what if we had artificial intelligence and we could take someone's mind and transplant that into someone else's body, and that's really cool. But you're missing other things. Like, you're missing other things. Like you're missing the Jackie Chan experience in the United States. And then the Jackie Chan experience watching the U.S. and Europe cause far-right extremism, threaten their country, call everyone Asian Wuhan flu bringers, and anti-Asian racism attacks going through the roof, right? Making war all over Asia, right? Getting the Vietnamese, the Koreans, and all that. These people are, they have differences, but they're not. It's not like when you kill an Asian person in Vietnam or in the United States, right? And then blame it on, well, he just had to cool off. The white guy just had to get that out of his system. Whether that's a U.S. soldier in Vietnam, a U.S. soldier in Korea, or a American on the streets of Georgia, in a massage parlor, killing 6 Asian women, right? The Asians across the world, I mean, I include myself in that because I'm also Asian. That's not like a thing that it just. Okay, so maybe we killed millions of you and we talk about you like you just animals, and then we expect you to say that we're not racist, right? But that stuff that doesn't just you just because you want, just because, I mean, Western, now I'm speaking from the East to the West, right? This is the non-Stormtrooper half of my brain talking to the Stormtrooper world. Just because you want your Western world to feel like you're not racist, you cannot continue to do inside of your country's racism and violence, racist violence, and then outside racist violence, and expect people to say nothing about these things. And so I feel like, that's where like me and I don't know what Katie Long's like perspective on that is, but Jackie Chan has come out and said it. That's why the United States has not made any movies with him. He made lots of movies in China. In fact, another recommendation, if you want one, is the Iron Mask. Not the Man in the Iron Mask, the Iron Mask. Let's see if I can find that one. Yeah. Now, Rotten Tomatoes hate it, but because most reviewers on Rotten Tomatoes are Westerners. It's an Anglo platform. But the Iron Mask was actually very good. And it was sponsored and created by Russia and China. It actually stars Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan. It's actually a very entertaining action movie. It's like more entertaining than a lot of action movies I've seen in the last 10 years. It's got a more original plot than any Marvel movie I've ever seen, right? It's very funny. It's actually very funny. Now, the Foreigner is not very funny. The Foreigner is Jackie Chan is very serious. He makes like 2 jokes. He doesn't make very many. In the very beginning, he makes like 2 jokes. But in this one, the Iron Mask, it's a show. I've done an entire stream just on this movie, but I just want to say that the Iron Mask is a show where set in 1800s London during the Opium War times, during the beginning of the century of humiliation, right? It's during the colonial time. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a prison
right? He's also Eastern European as well, and he of course his politics have been around in various places, but he has also seen like things that he does not like. He obviously has made it very well inside the United States and became the governor of the one of the leading Democrat half of global empires. The biggest state, one of the biggest blue states. But anyways, but Arnold Schwarzenegger also, like in this movie, he plays a prison guard, he plays the prison warden of a prison for lots of non-white people. Basically, it's a mass slave workshop and also a prison house of nations. In the way of the global. In the global colonial structure, where the colonizer takes over the colonized, right? The African, Asian country, people, uses the people for cheap labor, also known as slavery, coolies, and then takes the artifacts out, puts them in the museums, and takes all the resources, the agricultural metals, ores, silver, tea, silk, copper, whatever, right? Takes it out. And so like in the Iron Mask, it's kind of all of that is kind of revealed in a more honest way than I've ever seen in a London that looks like a cesspool. Like it looks like shit, man, because it was, and it still is really. It has very good PR. They're very good at the Anglo-Saxon have mastered the art of professional lying through pretty words, like Neuromancer. I'm not saying that Neuromancer is bullshit, but I mean it's full of pretty words and pretty images. Airbrushing their steaming piles of unwashed ass shit, right? The Anglo-Saxon have mastered that art. And so the Iron Mask is Chinese and Russian actually funded. And there is some input from, I think, European and possibly not very much there's no American money in this movie though. And so it's an actual more honest look at what London was like, which is very dirty, very polluted. Speaking of COP26, right? Speaking of the struggle between East and West, right? An environment, right? It's like the European countries, right? Let me see if I can get the Iron Mask London. Britain likes to, when it makes its 007 movies, right? Let me see. When okay, I'm not gonna be able to find it. I don't think. Yeah, here's some screenshots from it, right? And so like when Britain shows itself, it likes to show the nice part, Buckingham Palace, right? You see 007, you see like, oh, look at this. He's got really nice posh hotels he's visiting. Look at his beautiful little tuxedo. Oh, look at the historic sites of London. Look at this little green grass of this nice British enclave. Look at the little summer house. Can't you picture a lord or a lady? Think of some Victorian era tea sipping and discussing, who's gonna marry who, Queen Victoria's nieces and nephews, and all gonna interbreed and become Nazis under global Euro-led imperialism. Just like Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth's Nazi husband, Mr. Prince Philip. Anyways, so but like in London, I mean, like my point is that like when the West talks about itself, they like to project the very best face of themselves, right? What they don't want people to see is that London, the wealth of the great capitalist, disproportionately Euro settler cities, like New York, right? Like London, like Vancouver, even in Scotland, the Glasgows, the big cities of Scotland also benefited from the colonialism as much as even inside of the UK. The British, of course, have wronged the Scottish and the Irish both. But still, even in an international sense, Scotland even benefited. And so what they don't want to show is the Europe that has enshackled and enslaved inside of Europe people of color, often for the benefit of their own wealth, and also externally what Britain did in Africa with its millions of enslaved. Elon Musk with his Dutch colonialism in Africa, apartheid South Africa, and the history of the Dutch East India Company. What the Dutch did in Taiwan, speaking of Eastern Asian peoples. As an Austronesian, the Native Hawaiians are related to the Taiwanese. I have a whole stream just on that, and I have a very long thread just on that. And so And so the when the West speaks about itself, right, whether in cyberpunk format, nonfiction format, or fiction format, right, it doesn't really want to talk about that part, right? What it wants is what does it want, right? What the West wants is, oh look, cool Asian stuff. Look, neon kanji characters that I don't even know what it means. I don't know what that is, but it's cool, man. Oh wow, Japan has robot dogs and there's yakuza. There's like neon ninjas and samurai swords whipping around killing people. Like, never mind the crimes of the Japanese collaborators in fascism, right? And Western imperialism. Let's just think about the cool stuff that Japan, only Japan though. China never had anything cool, even though China has more advanced and cooler technology than the Japan or the US or Europe will ever have, really. But look at the cool stuff that our friends now, I mean, we don't really like the Japanese. They're still Japs, which is a slur. Don't say that word. But, you know, they're still those people. But also they're cool because they do our bidding now, especially in Okinawa, where we're building missile bases to threaten nuclear war against China as part of the second and third island chain to ring in China under global imperialism, right? So that's what the West don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about the violence, right? Individual violence, but more importantly, systemic, economic, geopolitical, ongoing violence. We don't want to talk about Okinawa for real. Like, that's what most American soldiers, when you become an American soldier and you go to Japan, you're going to be stationed in Okinawa with Brian Berletic, one of the few people that actually cares to tell the truth at the New Atlas about what the U.S. is doing worldwide, right? But people don't want to hear that, right? That's why he got his accounts banned off of so many platforms, and he had to publish articles under a pseudonym for the last 20 years because nobody wanted to hear the truth. Not the individual Americans and Europeans, and certainly not the military-industrial complex, who would lose a lot of revenue if they stopped selling bombs and missiles to blow up Iraq, Afghanistan, all the wars, all the needless wars, right? If what a Westerner who was stationed in East Asia, Okinawa specifically, right, in the U.S. Navy, committing horrible crimes, poisoning their water, poisoning their environment, mass sexual assault, mass political subjugation, right? Dual colonization by the U.S. and Japanese collaborator. But we don't get that. Do we ever get that in a cyberpunk story? Do we get that from Neuromancer? No, we don't get that. What we get from Neuromancer, what we get from cyberpunk, right? What we get from Cyberpunk 2077 is, look, cool Asian stuff, and there's some scary zaibatsus, right? It's like, if anything, it's like Japan is full of the shredder, you know? Japan is coming, and the rich Japanese gangsters are going to take over America, right? And they're going to kill us all, and they're going to enslave us. So Japan is going to do to us what we did to lots of other countries. So we better like stop them, right? Europe also is scary sometimes, so but we can also use Japan and Europe as the imperial Western leader. The United States uses both Japan and Germany, not just in World War II, but also to this day by backing the far right and making them part of the military-industrial complex and imperialism against Russia and China, right? So, like, you know, and so that's like part of the thing. I was like, no, like, well, I'm trying to find my little screenshot, like, right? Please don't talk about the violence that we continue to engage with and act against you, Asian individuals in Europe and in the United States, in the West, right? And definitely don't talk about the ongoing international violence and war and deaths of millions of Asians, because Afghanistan is also Asian people, by the way. So is Iraq is West Asian, actually. The Middle East is it's not a very well considered term by a lot of people in that region, right? And that's easy to forget, to kind of compartmentalize, like a toxic dude, serial girlfriend abuser, right? Grooming 16-year-olds and then try to say, well, this is the first time I've never done anything bad after having abused like 10 girls in a row. And then always, like Leonardo DiCaprio, always choosing a girl under 25 because they haven't got smart enough to stop the sexual and gaslighting and abuse of the dude. Breaking Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea off into little compartments is part of this Western gaslighting and going, well, we've never done a war before. What's happening in Ukraine? That has the U.S. has never been in a war. This time we're in it for the right reasons. And that was the point that, Breonna Joy Gray, a black a black person that also does education and political commentary was trying to describe to a Westerner in D.C. And he's like, "What are you talking about? The U.S. and the Anglo-Saxons generally, we've only ever done things. We've never done a war before. This is like the first time. It's all about human rights and democracy. Didn't you hear there's like 500 or 5 million Ukrainians that are all being thrown into a concentration camp? Didn't you hear about that? There's like 50,000. There's like 15,000 Iranians that are all being executed right now just for standing in the street with a sign. There's like 300 babies being thrown out of the ICUs in incubators in right now. It's happening. Did you know that? Or wait, was that last century? Maybe that was in the 90s when we wanted to start the Gulf War. You know what's happening right now? There's like 20 million little girls in Xinjiang in China. They're all having IUDs forcefully inserted. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that was in Canada against indigenous children under ongoing genocide. But that, like, we don't know anything about history. We don't know what happened in Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, indigenous people inside of Canada or the United States. We don't know what happened in Hawaii. Who knows what happened in Hawaii? All we know is we want some human rights, and it's 2022, and nothing ever happened in the last 5 centuries ever that could possibly lead us to any other conclusion. Then we have to back whatever war America wants us to back. So that strategy of, just, going like, don't talk about anything bad that happened. Don't talk about the racist attacks. Don't talk about how all the British citizens are actually racist and actually got really upset and sent you death threats because you, an Asian girl, kissed Harry Potter, the beloved little white wizard boy. Don't talk about that, because if you talk about that, well, it's like, hey, girlfriend that was abused by some terrible dude. Don't talk about how you were abused, right? It's like, sign this NDA, right? That's the corporate version of that. Don't talk about how you were abused, because it will be bad for you. And if you talk about how you're abused, because the truth comes out, it's bad for the serial dude abuser, right? In a serial romantic sexual relationship abuser, but that it applies to serial white on Asian racism abuse, and then international Western country on Eastern and non-white country abuse, like inside a corporation, even not racist, just, oh, did that boss do something sexually abusive to you? Did that boss embezzle funds? Did you find out something bad that the boss did? Well, don't talk about that. If you talk about that, you see this NDA, you're never going to work again. So you better shut up. That's the same process though, right? Of breaking off. It's called mass forced forgetting of history, and compartmentalizing history to go, well, that happened 100 years ago. Colonialism happened 100 years ago. Silver Spook, America is only doing good things in Hawaii now. You should just be happy, right? What are you talking about, black person? Racism is over. Don't you know Martin Luther King was around and then Obama was president? Racism's over. I don't know what you're complaining about, right? It's about that's a black and white photograph era. We're in the color photograph era. That's why all of the 1960s, right, where the first the black woman who was a little girl, right, who went to the first unsegregated school and was horribly threatened and attacked for it. She's only like 60 something now, right? But that was a long time ago, okay? It was a long time ago. We don't know anything about that. And also, if you want to work in capitalist America or Western racist capitalist country, you better never talk about how we're racist and capitalist and how capitalism is bad. If you ever talk about that, well, how are you going to survive our system and have a career and stuff? So just enjoy the place that you've been given as the token top 10%, the 10% of black and Asian and non-white people who get to be in these fancy shows. Just be happy that we gave you a position. Shut up, and maybe you'll get to be in a Marvel movie. And you'll get to support billionaire philanthropist, arms dealer, Playboy, and Captain America. Maybe you'll be the Asian Avenger, Maybe you'll be the Black Avenger. And then you'll be able to save the world too. But not if you talk about how we're actually not saving the world. And we're actually destroying it. Anyways. So that's not the Peripheral. That's not cyberpunk. But there is the anti-Asian. Let's just say it's the forced. It's like it's not really, I wouldn't say it's forgetting, because the West never really knew who the East was, but it's certainly selectively not remembering or selectively not listening to Asians. Actually, William Gibson, when he wrote Neuromancer, I mean, he'd never been to Japan. He just imagined what Japan was like in his head. And that's whatever, you know. Imagination and science fiction and imagination and fantasy, you know. But at the same time, you know, and like that was in the 1980s, right? But it's also like, it is, you know, there's a whole book, my friend Dr. Chris Pye has a whole book called Open World Empire that deals with empire gaming, which is directly linked with cyberpunk, the computer revolution, which of course artificial intelligence is an outgrowth of that. And Open World Empires was written by, you know, he's Asian and white, but you know, he's been in Asia and outside, and it deals with the global rise of video games, race erotics, and it deals with empire. And part of that is all of Asia, just Japan, you know, Thailand, you know, whatever is in it, just China, it's mostly just bad stuff, but you know, all of Asia, Korea, K-pop, robots, anime. It's just this fun little playground that we can visit and have a lot of fun in, and have a lot of sex in, and you know, marry our Asian wife. It's like a joke, like the libertarian white guy with his Asian wife. You know, U.S. military with his Asian wife, who doesn't talk about her actual experiences because, well, for the same reason that Katie Lung was said, don't talk about your experiences, right? And it's like, it's just this playground where there's lots of women that we can do something with, and then there's like exotic culture, there's neon, there's video games, there's computer chips that we can probably make some money from, like TSMIC, under continued U.S. puppet regimes that actually maintain capitalism and self-hatred in Taiwan, and the suppression of, there are indigenous people in Taiwan, but they have mostly been wiped out by the U.S. and the Japanese collaborators. And so there's all this fun stuff that we can have there. And cyberpunk, you know, it does have this history of a white dude imagining what Asia is, denying the reality of what Asia is, right? And Asia is not one place. Asia is 60% of the world's population. The majority of Earth is in Asia. It's like more people by far than all the white people combined, like 5 times more in Asia. So it's not even, you shouldn't really, the word Asia is a very Euro term, because it encompasses, you know, I don't even know what it's comparable to. But you know, everything that is west of Hawaii, you know, California really, and east of West Germany, really, because East Germans don't really count as human to a lot of West Germans, who are, a lot of them are Nazi collaborators and put in place by the United States, like the CEO of Deutsche Bank and CEO of entities like Volvo and Volkswagen. So everybody inside of that, outside of our purview, those people are just this playground that we have fun with, or they're just like a place that computer chips magically appear from. They're the magical place that magically levels up all of our World of Warcraft carriers, like Steve Bannon himself, Donald Trump's advisor, started a Chinese gold farming company inside of in China to try to use the. And this is the thing they don't tell you, is that the most oppressed parts of China are operated by Western corporations, in fact, right? And a lot of it is trying to figure out, how do we get technology so that we can improve our material conditions after the century of humiliation, right? But we need the transfer, and we need economic development, which requires trade, and the West won't let us do that unless we, you know, give them something. So it's not like the peoples of China have ever really wanted to have those, you know, because there's environmental problems that happen there. There were, you know, terrible stuff happened at Apple company. But, you notice most of Apple has moved out into India now, because India is more, they're the easier. India is in a position, they're not as strong collectively a position as China in terms of socialism, in terms of doing what's right for all the masses. They have a more subservient, they are more deeply colonized people, and the fact that Indians all speak English better than the other languages speaks volumes, whereas in China they speak their original language. So the depths of colonization are deeper, the seeds are like deeper planted in India, in along with historical differences. And so that's why a lot more of these hyper oppressive Western companies are using Indian coolies. Let's be real, slave labor basically, or as cheap as we can possibly get it, right? And less in China, but China has now progressed massively and made huge leaps and strides in poverty alleviation. I'm going to go into those specific numbers, but all of that complexity, that like what happened in the Cold War, what happened in World War II, really in Asia, right? What is the U.S. doing historically and presently? What has Europe done? What has Britain done in Hong Kong, right? The Riviera of the Orient, right? The rest of the British call it the platform we use to plunder China. That's what Hong Kong is. It's a British colony to launch opium wars and suck trillions of dollars of wealth out of that country, right? When does cyberpunk talk about that, really? What does it talk about, right? What the U.S. is doing in Okinawa? What the using Taiwan as an unsinkable aircraft carrier, right? Backing global capitalism and extracting wealth. When does it? The cyberpunk doesn't deal with that. Why does it not deal with that often, except for mine? Because it is coming still from a Western centric perspective that is about don't talk about how there's racism, don't talk about the race, the capitalist, corporate, and racist violence against you specifically, and don't talk about that, what we're doing over there either, you know. Anyways, I feel like I've gone off from that a lot, but so I'm going to stop for a bit. So, you know, and so in the Peripheral, because I'm supposed to be talking about the Peripheral. I threw out lots of. I've went on 3 different tangents. I got to close some of these windows. But you know, so like Jackie Chan's character in The Iron Mask, which deals with the British colonial history in Britain in the 1800s, as the prison warden, like Arnold Schwarzenegger symbolically being the slave driver inside the country inside Britain in the metropole, but also, right, globally Britain as a force for subjugation around the world, right, benefiting from the world's enslavement. In the United States, it was enslavement of indigenous people, stolen indigenous land with black slaves. In Asia and Taiwan, it was Dutch enslavement with Chinese slaves on indigenous Taiwanese territory. The Dutch called it the land of milk and honey. The French in Vietnam, the British again in India, right? And so like that plays out in this movie in a way that it is definitely an Eastern salvo back at the West. Is going like, well, I mean, you're not being honest about all these things in your movies, entertainment, and in your nonfiction books and your news and and what you teach your own people. You're not being honest about this stuff. And so it talks about the subjugation, and the dragon of China is being sickened in this story by a collaborator in China who is working with the British, and all the healing tea that used to heal all the people is all being taken out. And the dragon, which also the word like the word mo'o in Hawaiian is very similar to the word shahui, and the word the concept of the dragon, or like I say, I think it's long, but the word that means nation in Hawaiian and the word that means nation in Chinese is actually very similar. Shahui is the word for nation in Chinese. Like Shaokang Shahui is the common moderate prosperity. Shao is small, Kang prosperity. Shahui is nation, right? So the common moderate prosperity for all of the people of the nation, right? That's the current goal for China at present. Unlike the West, which is exorbitant prosperity for a tiny handful of Elons, rich white guys. Yeah. Anyways, we'll get more into the specifics about that. But in the movie, the dragon and the dragon is not just some beast that is to be slain. The dragon is like symbolically the land, the water, the trees, the forest, the desert, all of the land and the people together. And the dragon sometimes in the legend like protects. It's not like a malevolent evil entity to be slain, right? Like in Western and European, you think of like Saint George. The dragon is this horrid beast that you tell to your children to scare them at night and has to be killed. But in the dragon in Eastern culture it is an entity out there like so many other entities, like the lion, like the monkey, like the crane, right? It's one of and the dragon is often is a protector of resources and a protector of the tea, a protector of nature itself, from which all things come. And it's also the dragon is all the people together is like the Great Wall of China is almost, you can visualize it. It is like a long, multi-thousand mile, visible from a satellite in outer space dragon. It's a steel wall that encircles and defends the entire federation of 56 plus ethnic regions of multi 3, 4, 5,000 plus year coexistence, right? In which time there were more struggles and more battles and more violence at periods in time. But for 1,500 years, there has been friendly relations, even between Cambodia and China, and Korea and China is 1,000 years of peace. That's not even inside of the formal federation, right? This predates the Westphalian conception of a state at all, right? It's far more, it's far more ancient and in many ways more advanced and more developed than the Western conceptions of what is a state with borders. And if these ICBMs are here, and if you cross this border and you're the wrong color, like the U.S. southern border, then you must be deported back to your country. And we're not going to say why. It's because racism, colonialism, and capitalism. But anyways, so the Iron Mask is like subtly dealing with all of that. And they actually go from London all the way across Russia, many different ethnic regions of Russia. And then they come into China, and then you see they travel through a lot of China, and they have to like remove the scourge that is collaborators under British, American, and French colonialism in China, who are collaborating with them, stealing and making money, taking a cut and plundering their own people for the benefit of London, right? And they have to kick them, fight, and the struggle is to kick out the invaders, right? So that is actually worthy. That's a fight, like I often say, like which side is being valorized, glamorized? Who is the protagonist in the film, right? Usually in Western cinema, the protagonist is actually the bad guy historically. Like whenever the U.S. is the good guy, like I mean, you take your fucking pick. Any American war movie. It's about how we felt sad about our Vietnam, even the most anti-war movies like the Full Metal Jackets and the Apocalypse Now. It's about how our American soldiers felt really sad and bad. And so they're it's like we have some bad leadership, but all in all, America is good. And that's like, and then you have your straight up Heinlein, Starship Troopers. You have your straight up, your GI Joe. You have your Avengers. Captain U.S. military saving the world from. It doesn't matter if it's science fiction. Doesn't matter if it's present fiction. It doesn't matter if it's historical. It's always like the closest America will get to saying the truth is our American soldiers felt sad when we committed genocide in Vietnam, in Iraq, right? The Hurt Locker. And we're never going to go the full, we're the bad guys of this planet. Because, it's for the same reason. It's like, shut up. Stop saying we're racist. Stop saying we're colonialist. Stop saying that our capitalist system is bad. Right? We can't hear that. And so that's why I have to say it. But anyways, Iron Mask is one show that says that approach is not like it is not a PhD dissertation in that topic of the wrongs of colonialism and the wrongs of racism and the plunder that came out of Asia and was drained into places like London and New York and Glasgow. But and Paris, but it does like overall that's like that is more on display than you will ever see in any Western show. But anyways, this is not really the Peripheral. I'm like way off of that, but so that's where cyberpunk falls short. It just straight up falls short. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Gibson. It doesn't matter if it's Mike Pondsmith, CD Projekt Red. It doesn't touch that stuff. Because it's made for Western consumption. It's made for the average consumer is a European or white 30 to 50-year-old male. That's who's consuming that stuff, There's a reason why that this CD Projekt Red got away with all that transphobia. Because, in the same reason why J.K. Rowling gets away with transphobia and has billions of dollars. right? Because that's not a problem really for the Western world. Even though they'll make it seem like, oh, it's such a all the SJW and all these wokes are coming out. They're insisting that there are black and brown people in all of our movies. And oh my God, somebody was in my stream yesterday going, oh, Silver Spook, are you worried that what do you think about the agenda to put more black and brown people in X-Men? I'm like, what? Why is that a problem? What do you think about the agenda to have all these trans characters? What do you think about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever? I mean, I don't even I was listening to the Black Power media, and I'm like, Wakanda Forever is it has problems that they're correctly addressed. Like, why are indigenous people, Mesoamerican indigenous people, made to be at the throats of African people who are also indigenous to Africa? Why is Wakanda? Why are the black countries and then the indigenous countries meant to be all fighting each other, right? What kind of slave plantation narrative is this? But the problem is, it's like there's problems within that narrative of Wakanda Forever, but then the problems that are being seen in a lot of the Western world is the fact that there exists any black people on screen, right? It's like the problem is that Black Panther isn't more racist, and by more racist I mean no Black Panther, no movies with all black people or most black people should exist. Period. It should be Iron Man, Chris Hemsworth as Aryan gods, and Chris Evans, white blonde hair, blue eyed dudes as Mr. Star Spangled Underpants. That So anyway, but I'm not talking about Peripheral now. I'm going off on the other topics. So I keep on saying I'm going to come back and then I go back away. But I did want to give another shout out to I wanted to give a shout out to Iron Mask because last year I had a whole video just on this. If you want to learn more about that, you can find the video that I made about it like freaking 25,000 weeks ago. Every week I did a video, so I don't even know where that is. Wu Assassins, maybe it was 2 years ago. Wu Assassins has more Asian representation than any cyberpunk with neon kanji characters in it. I will say that. With not just Asian representation, but Asian perspective, Eastern perspective, than any cyberpunk anything. Crap, I don't even know where the fuck I put it. Okay, I might not be able to find it. Okay, Holly has a link to it. Let me go to let me see if I can get in my YouTube studio the link to it. Okay. Okay. No, I'm I'm not gonna even try. Or maybe I will try real fast. Okay. Silver Spook. Okay, everybody watch me Google really hard right now, okay? This is the comedy section where Silver Spook cannot find his own freaking videos. And I can't find how to get to my own live stream in the middle of my stream. And I'm bad at streaming. But anyways, if you would like Silver Spook to hire someone to be like a professional professional producer on top of Holly that is just like helping me just do links and streams and video and edit videos, consider supporting the Silver Spook Patreon and the Silver Spook through direct Ko-Fi donations and or through the Silver Spook Patreon, because we can't afford to do any of that kind of stuff without your continued economic support. Okay, Silver Spook, Iron Mask. That should be it. So anyways, but thanks everybody who, just a quick, while I'm typing those words in and not finding what I need to find, just a quick shout out to everybody who is on the list of the Patreon, everybody who is currently a Patreon member, or who has donated to the Ko-Fi. I just want a quick shout out to all of yous. And apparently my computer is slowing down to a crawl, so that doesn't help. But thanks a lot to all these people whose images are thankfully all of your names are still images. They're not video. Sorry, let me close some of my thousands of tabs. I have like too many tabs open, but that always happens on these streams. because without your continued support, we would not be able to put together these. I try to make them entertaining and educational, but sometimes I am not capable of doing that, and this is one of those times. But anyways, Holly has a link. Who cares? You know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna stop getting distracted and talking to my own brain. So you know, one other thing I wanted to say about the about not just the Iron Mask, but what was that show? The Foreigner. Yeah, The Foreigner. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so in The Foreigner, Jackie Chan comes back and he plays a character who is a Chinese. He's actually I guess it's not really a spoiler. Jackie Chan's character in The Foreigner is an Asian inside of he's an Asian inside of the UK. Pierce Brosnan plays a Irish politician and ostensibly an ex-member of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, up in Northern Ireland. And so, if you've ever seen Derry Girls, it's kind of a good follow-up to Derry Girls. So it's like the action movie, serious, more gritty, kung fu action, and improvised explosive and Semtex extra splody movie follow-up to Derry Girls, which is it's an Irish little short 6-episode comedy about it's set in Ireland during the Troubles in the 90s with the Cranberries soundtrack. Anyways, The Foreigner though is set in the UK, but again it has Jackie Chan, and it does have Chinese. The Chinese have put some of the funding. There's also British and I think a little bit of American. So that really matters. It really matters. I can tell you, right? So the perspective is not necessarily anti-British. It's not anti-UK. It's not but it's not anti-Chinese either. It's definitely like a more, it definitely says maybe we shouldn't have a lot of terrorist attacks in London or in Ireland. It does deal with that struggle between Ireland and Britain historically, and also the struggles inside of Ireland. With the Northern Ireland, etc., and the split, and Jackie Chan plays the Asian inside of London who gets some entity connected to the IRA sets off a terrorist attack that blows up a wedding dress shop in London, downtown London. His daughter is killed terribly, and then he goes on this he goes on a vendetta. Well, it's a mission to stop and find whoever killed his daughter. And so the British are, the British police are not moving very quickly on it. They're not able to do very much. The Irish politicians inside of Ireland and the ex-IRA member are like, it's kind of like the beneath the surface, right? Oh, well, if anybody commits a crime in Britain, we're just going to solve the crime. If anybody commits a crime in Ireland, well, we just solve the crime. It's like, no, actually, like, especially with these kinds of things, the politics, the geopolitics between Ireland and Britain, right? Between the IRA, between this long colonial history, speaking of colonization, between, right, the UK, between Britain, the British, the English, and the Irish comes into play. It can't, right? It's like, and the politician in Ireland's like, well, I can't just give up people because that could cause even further chaos, and our people, I'll be hung out to dry. The British are like, well, we have to tell our own British people that we're stopping the Irish from blowing up Britain, or we're gonna drop. If you don't stop it, we the British are gonna drop paratroopers. The British, we're gonna reoccupy your Irish country to stop your insurgents, right? We're gonna stop your rebellions. Well, we just call them terrorists. We're gonna stop your terrorists over there in Ireland if you don't. So there's all that inside the inside politics between Britain and Ireland. One of the OG Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxons was one of the biggest colonizers in history of the earth, right? And Ireland is really one of the OG old school colonies, right? That's been around for so many centuries, right? And then the Britain went to Africa, went to Asia, went to the Americas, but it really did a lot of training on how to do what it did in Africa, right? What the East India Trading Company did in Ireland. So that in that sense, Foreigner it at least it looks at like, also inside of in the first scene, right? So Katie Lung's character in inside of London, Katie Lung's character gets, and again, the reason why I brought up to start is because she plays Ash in the Peripheral. I swear to God, I'm gonna get back to the Peripheral, but Katie Lung's character is Jackie Chan's daughter that gets blown up early on, so she doesn't have a huge part of that. But like within, and then some rich dickhead dude with a Tesla shows up, like like a Tesla looking race car speeds up and like reverses straight in it. Jackie Chan's about to take a parking spot, and this dude like speeds up and like high speed reverses into Jackie Chan's car, trying to steal his spot, right? And then Jackie Chan gets out of the car, and then the dude gets out and he immediately blames the Asian, right? So there's like it's not like huge on the anti-Asian racism, although there's a little bit of that does come up, right? And then but then shortly after that, it's basically like trying to get justice, and then a lot of it is just like action movie, who done it, who blew up this, who's conspiring with whom, the inner machinations of the Irish government and the history of the IRA, and the people that are like still not over the violence and the death, and people who want to like still get back for people, cousins and sons and daughters and nieces and nephews they lost during the 90s and 80s, etc. And they're like, I'm not finished with the Northern Ireland, and I'm not done with the fight against the English. I'm not done with this, and they still want to keep fighting, right? But they're like, there has been peace for 20. There's been relative peace for like 20 years, right? Since the signing of the agreements, and so it deals with that. But then also there's a whole other level because you have the Asian guy, right? Because the foreigner is the foreigner the Irish, right? That's foreign in the UK, because it is. There are Irish people that are setting off bombs in this movie in the UK. But it's also the foreigner is the Asian that's a foreigner in all of Europe, and the foreigner because Jackie Chan is a foreigner in Ireland, and he's also a foreigner in the UK, right? And then that also comes in where it's like Jackie Chan's character. It turns out he's actually Vietnamese. His name is like Nong Quan, right? He's like, I was like, when I saw his name, I was like, Quan, like, what is his name? Jonathan K. Quan? What's his name? Daniel K. Quan, the one who's in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and he's also in Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, right? Is it Jonathan K. Quan? Okay, yeah. So anyway, so that character in Everything Everywhere All at Once, he's also Vietnamese. And I was like, he has the same name as Jackie Chan's character. But Jackie Chan is obviously he's Chinese, right? But he's playing a Vietnamese character, and then you get some of the history where it's like, Jackie Chan's character, he actually says like, I blew up so many Americans. I killed. He's an ex-Vietnamese communist guerrilla fighter, and he's like, Jackie Chan knows the explosives because Jackie Chan knows this is Czech. This is East European Semtex explosives. They gave to us in the communist and the communist fighters. They gave to us, the Vietnamese communists, to kill Americans. And Jackie Chan's like, oh yeah, I know your IRA explosives because we used to kill so many capitalist Americans. So there's actually like, and so he's still pissed off about that. The U.S. invasion. He was captured. Jackie Chan's character is a Vietnamese communist fighter that was captured in Saigon by the Americans and then like forced to work for them. And he got like training for them, but he's still fucking pissed off about that entire thing. And so that comes back up, and he's like, I'm still not mad. I'm like, you Irish and you British, you are very upset at each other, but I am upset at all of you. He's like, the Asian is like, all of you Scottish, you British, the Irish have less to do it, but still, like the Irish, they like, there's no collaboration, certainly in the United States with white supremacy. And in Ireland, they still call him the Chinaman. And he's like, all of you have committed terrible acts against me as a Vietnamese person, and find my goddamn daughter's killer, or I'm gonna blow you all up. Like, he actually uses the Vietnamese spike traps. He has the whole guerrilla warfare, like in the forest surrounding like an Irish estate. There's a whole like there's a whole like Vietnam guerrilla warfare scene where he kicks all of the Irish's asses. All the not the Irish, all the IRA dudes. You know, they're like the nasty dudes that are still trying to do unnecessary killing of innocent people. You know, I mean, because like it's kind of like that's part of it. Is like, well, I mean, what is justified violence under colonial? That's a one topic. It's like some characters in the movie. I'm gonna tell you who because I want you to watch it. Some of the Pierce Brosnan is he's I don't want to say shouldn't say anything more about Pierce Brosnan's character, but he plays a very interesting character. He's not a very good guy, let's say that. But I mean, like there's some characters who like you can blow up a bomb, but don't kill anyone. You can blow up a bomb in London, don't kill anyone though. This is just to improve our situation. And other people are like, no. We, the Irish and the British, we are at war. We are still at war. The 20 years of peace. This is a brief escapade in the ongoing Irish people's resistance against the British colonizers, and every one of the Londonites shopping in their high street with their bougie ass wedding dresses and their tea and their crumpets and their little tight little crumpet lips and their little queen, and they're sitting on our stolen Irish wealth. Think of all the Irish children that died in the famines. Think of all the Irish people that were oppressed for the last 700 years. We are not done. We're not done. You freaking sell out. So there's all that back and forth, right? And so it's like and so this, you know, and to be like, you just want this bombing for your own political campaign, and no, you just want this. You're just bloodthirsty. Why are you killing innocent people? We don't want to kill anyone. We just want to, you know, yes, maybe the British deserve some of that, but they, you know, so there's a whole like, when is violence justified? How is violence justified? You know, the Vietnamese also, like the Vietnamese guy is like, hey, you assholes, I have been very peaceful operating this little Vietnamese restaurant in your racist London. I have been very peaceful as an Easterner in your little Western London. You're just lucky I have not been so pissed off. I have lost multiple family members in Southeast Asia with your American wars, with your British narco trafficking. I've lost so much to you. You're lucky I'm very peaceful as the foreigner in your country, because I am very well trained in the arts of war. Guerrilla war, traditional war, multiple kung fu styles, and yes, acrobatic wushu, because Jackie Chan is trained in that. Not you know, that's separate. He has special forces training and he has Vietnamese guerrilla training, right? And he's like, you very lucky that so it's like, what violence is justified, right? Under what circumstances is the violence justified from all these directions? And so that makes the drama like very intense, because it's like characters are like, husbands and wives are split on the question, like, you know, like a husband, the wife is like, husband is like going behind the wife's back, but the wife is going behind the husband's back because one of the husbands is like not radical enough. Like, don't you know I lost my nephew? And so I'm cheating on you with an IRA member to make sure that we get back for my nephew. That, you know, look at my nieces are. My cousin is in prison still. My cousin is still in a British prison, rotting in that prison. And so there's like, yeah, it's very intense. But anyways, so I'll stop going off about that. So that's Foreigner. But anyway, that's nothing to do with the Peripheral or cyberpunk. So I apologize. But so coming back into this, so I haven't talked about artificial intelligence at all. So back into the Peripheral. So in the Peripheral, it's not necessarily about all of that. Like I'm adding many layers of Silver Spook, educational, jet engine decibel, high velocity, high frequency stints of word saying. They're not rants, okay? That's not. I never ran. I don't even know what that word means. Is that like rat with an N inserted? I don't know what a rant is. Anyways. But I'm adding some, that's not all in the Peripheral, but it does deal with that concept, like in this scene in particular, right? This is the things that they omitted from the book, I think, as I was saying earlier, right? Like the Peripheral, I'm not saying don't read Neuromancer because it's racist. I mean, it's great. it's the best. It's one of the best things that you could get out of 1980s United States science fiction or Canadian science fiction in that time period. It is what it is. You know, nothing's perfect. I know stuff that I made is not perfect, but Peripheral, the book has a lot of like Neuromancer has a lot more set dressing and the backgrounds and talking about cool tech in the future. Not to say that the show doesn't have cool tech, artificial intelligence, body transference, displacement, you know, international economic financial manipulation, interdimensional, alternate continuum in the sense of time travel, multiverse. It's a multiverse show as well. Multiverse, financial and technological manipulation, all that kind of stuff happens in the Peripheral. But then some of it is cut because there's too much and there's a lot of scenery. The stuff that was cut, I appreciate that it was cut, but the stuff that was left in, like this entire scene in episode 6, there's a scene that happens in episode 6 where the detective Inspector Lobier, who is the high praetor with all of the Western world's artificial intelligence, and every inch of the world is surveilled by nanotech-sized micro drones, and information is gathered out of every pore of every what you ate last summer and 2 seconds ago. The brand of Earl Grey tea from the side of your cheek is being scrubbed by some near invisible, little pollen spore sized drone that's like collecting all the data, all the senses and touches and sights, who killed who had sex with who. It's all known. So don't try to lie to Detective Inspector Lobier. It's fine. Lobier is also played by a trans person. In the book, it is a trans person, and Inspector Lobier is, in fact, I believe is, unless I'm mistaken, is played by a trans person as well. Am I correct on that? Yeah. So Lobier is the. So I mean at least that's one improvement, right? So unlike J.K. Rowling and the Cho Chang anti-Asian racist, but we're not racist in London. I swear to God, all we do is sip tea. It's very nice tea that we stole from China. But anyways, unlike Turf Rowling in London, Lobier is now it's unclear if Lobier is a villain, but Lobier is not a hated character. There are far more hated characters in the book and in the show, at least at this point, than Lobier. Lobier is a positive. Like, the joke isn't, oh, look, it's a trans character in London. Let's send Dave Chappelle and have J.K. Rowling Duncan. Oh no! What are these SJWs coming for our beautiful British, very 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 our elven gender norms. I shouldn't say elven, but it's like the British as the headquarters of you. Speaking of the Lord of the Rings and the racism in that, London, in our beautiful London with our perfect 6'4", blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tea sipping, posh little British London. What are these transgender people doing, polluting our beautiful London? It doesn't have that, right? It's like London is a fucked up place in the Peripheral, with rich, fucking dickhead, too many Russian oligarchs. I mean, you should have a little more other oligarchs. I guess they do have a black, they have a black, wealthy, very wealthy, powerful villain, and then they have the Lobier. That I would say that's the London input. That's the US London input. The DC London input is make all the rich people Russians. The klept are specifically old Russian oligarch families that ostensibly run Britain. And then there's the British police. That's kind of fucked up, actually, when I think about it, right? With the police and the British are here to stop the Rush. Anyway, I won't go into that too far. Lobier's character, the good thing, I was trying to say something positive. The good thing is that the trans character played by Alexandra Billings is actually played by a trans person, and also is somebody who is trans, and it just happens to be trans. It's not like, oh look, it's a trans person. how has your trans experience been? Or it's like, hey, I don't hate you, trans person, in a very awkward way. Because some shows are like the liberal shows that are trying to do the right thing and not be transphobic, but then they're like, oh look, it's a trans person, how trans you are, and the whole character is just how they're the trans person. Oh look, it's a trans person, I'm a straight cis person, I don't hate you, and that just gets awkward, right? And so the low beer character is just a trans person that has other things going on in her life, right? It's just, she's an inspector. She has like artificial intelligences that are, again, the algorithms, I think they're called the aunties in the book, that are just scrubbing the world for data and then feeding it into low beer. And so low beer, you can't lie to low beer, because if you lie to low beer already knows everything. Assume she knows everything. It makes it easier on you, right? So if you try to lie to her, it's not going to be possible, because if you lie, one of the algorithms will feed the truth into her frontal lobe, and then you will be found out, and then you will be carted off to the prison of London. Now it's so the character is, you know, the detective, investigatory, and the science fictional sense of wondery. How do you magically have this like the Oracle in the Matrix? That's what it's a lot like. That's what it is. You know the Oracle in the Matrix? Low beer is a lot like the Oracle in the Matrix, but with different cyberpunk science fictional omniscience enabling explanations. You know what I'm talking about? You know, don't worry about the vase, Neo. Don't worry about the vase. I'm gonna teach you how to stop bullets, Neo. And he's like, what vase? And then he leans over and knocks. That's the other Oracle. You know, in this one, and the Oracle, Keanu Reeves is like, how did you know I was gonna lean back and knock over that vase? And she's like, you know what's really gonna bake your noodle later, Neo, is would you still have broken that vase if I didn't say anything? Right? She like knows everything. Well, she actually the Oracle is even more omniscient than low beer, but the Oracle is all inside of a computer matrix in the simulation that is the planetary machine intelligence run reality. But anyways, so the Oracle's character though, she like knows everything before it's gonna happen, knows everything, right? Technically, like, she would say she knows nothing, as Morpheus would say, but it's a lot like that. So, but her character, my point is that the character of Lowbeer, who like is reading people their histories while she's talking to them, the Lowbeer character in the Peripheral is about her omniscience rather than her transness, is what I'm trying to say. And her investigatory. Oh, it's like that in the book as well. It's also like that in the book. So I mean, so that's another positive about the Gibson books. I mean, I think I've already said a lot of positive things, but I feel like I might have been hating. I'm not trying to imply that the books are bad, obviously, because otherwise I wouldn't have read all of them multiple times. But anyway, so Detective Inspector Lowbeer shows up, and during the inspection, what I want to say is, in that scene, Lowbeer is asking, what are you doing with these alternate continuum where you have, so the Chloe Grace Moritz character, just a little bit of rehash, is operating in 2030s rural. So is it the South Carolina, or is it Virginia? Virginia. So in a little country bumpkin, Nowheresville, Virginia, where the biggest player is Mr. Pickett, who, it's a small town of like less than 5,000 people, maybe 10,000 people, right? Tiny little town. And she's trying to pay her mom's medical bills and is falling short. There's economic, malaise. There's 3D printers that are making your drugs and your illegal drugs and your legal anti-cancer medications, anti-Alzheimer's medications. And she plays video games for rich Floridian lawyers and New York stock traders. She's like the, I brought up Steve Bannon, the Chinese Gold Farm. Speaking of that, she's like the Americanified Chinese gold farmer operating out of economically depressed Rust Belt, Virginia. And then she is connected to 2100 future London after, again, as I said previously, climate apocalypse, pandemic apocalypse, nuclear apocalypse, sub-nuclear war apocalypse, all the bad things happen, right, in the future. All the negative dystopian things happen, and 80% of the population dies, right, in this hellscape future London that's all has almost no people in it, and artificial intelligence and 3D fabricator technology is just mechanically rebuilding and populating London. There's like literally just holograph butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers in a historical London. Actually, there's a lot about London today. I want to get that London, the Iron Mask. It's like there's literal there's a literal London that's like the London. There are cosplay zones in London that are like the London in Jackie Chan's Iron Mask. Like there's like the butchers and the bakers and the candlestick makers. There's like the little horse and the buggy. There's like poop on the side of the street. Back in that time period. But then it's also, but all of the scenery. I'm trying to get a good picture of like London, 1850, right? And then in the book, there's actually multiple cosplay zones, right? Horses and buggies, but all the people are in the book. All the people are robots dressed in top hats with monocles, and all the horses are robot horses, and all of the android horses, and all of the carts are, they're just props. They're cosplay zones. They're like all of London is a giant movie set that's meant to simulate different time periods of London, because all the people have all been killed, right? They've all died. They've all just, well, they haven't been killed. They have been killed by capitalism, colonialism, racism, but they have died in one of these plagues, pandemics, nukes, EMPs, fascist violence, terrorist strikes, societal upheaval. Everyone has all died, and so with the exception of a tiny member of the billionaire class, the klept, which are all Russian, because Rangel is writing this about the East, and then a handful of their servants that are like the millionaire class. So only the millionaires and billionaires live, basically. PR people, lawyers, and the handful of high-tech programmers and debuggers and interdimensional poltergeist handlers. Those are like interdimensional people who are being used in alternate multiverse realities by the handful of remaining wealthy Londonites. So it's a very like it gives the Peripheral a very specific feel to it, because you keep on going between like slightly shittier near future rural America with everybody talking like that. Damn it, Burton, you got to tell me about this. Flynn, I can't let you get hurt again, Flynn. I need intel, Flynn. Everybody talks like that. And you go to London where everybody's very posh, and they're all speaking, and they're all walking in black jackets, because we're very stylish in London, and anyways, I don't do very good accents, but the Peripheral, like it jumps back and forth between those two places, and so the Ash character in this scene is one of the handful of surviving people under the rich. He's really a Londonite. I mean, yeah, he's the children of the Russians, but he's really a Londonite. Really, the actor, he looks like, I was talking to Holly, he looks like Hugh Jackman crossed with Christian Bale. He's as British. The actor, he's definitely British, and he absolutely looks that way. But his accent is certainly that way, and his upbringing is that way. His mannerisms, his clothing choices are posh ass. I'm related to Victoria and or the Windsors, and probably some Nazis who are also the feudal royalty of Germany. I swear, he has a very, but he's a Russian. He's a child of Russians in the book. His name is Lev Zubov. Anyways, so that dude on the left, he is talking about to the investigator, I have no idea what's going on. He's not really saying I have no idea. He's like not talking because he knows if he says anything, it's probably going to be incriminating. And because the inspector knows not everything, but probably most of what anybody could know. It's like the CIA and MI6 put together, walking around, in a look kind of has a personality like the Sound of Music protagonist. But anyways, Julie Andrews, right? And so Holly was like, it's like Julie Andrews, but like scarier and as a mega detective. So anyways, so Lev is there, and he's being interrogated, right, by he's being interrogated by Inspector Lobier. And it comes to like, what were you guys doing with these? What were you guys doing with these alternate past versions of the Earth? What were you doing with these alternate reality South Carolinians, giving them remote piloting of 3D fabricated organic android bodies? That's what a peripheral is, basically. It's a lot going on. It's hard to really explain in one sentence what's going on in the peripheral. There's a lot going on. There's time travel, there's telepresence, everything. Anyways, and so he's like, well, we were just having a bit of fun in the stub. And like, what's a stub? A stub is the alternate timeline. That's what we call them. And then the Inspector Lobier says, that sounds nasty, short, brutish. Why do you call them that? And then that's where Ash, who is the Asian, in the book, she's not Asian. Like Ash's character in the Peripheral book is a goth for sure, with a very specific style. And I appreciate that Holly and I both appreciate that they omitted all the anti-goth stuff, because the main character, Mr. Wilf Netherton, spends most of the book, who is a white guy, hitting on a white goth girl. Who is also an environmentalist and is one of the first people that is like actually like sad that all of the animals and plants have died, and is like usually trying to do things, bringing up imperialism and colonialism are a problem. And the main character is constantly like, oh my God, it was so unbearable. She was so disgusting with all of her goth haircut and her ridiculous hair and her coy and grating clothing choices. Oh, those tattoos were hideous. And it's just like, what is this really? It's like really, he's really unbearable. It's kind of like reading that character was not fun. Let's put it that way. And that's because Holly is goth, and we're all for our goths and goth chicks, and also the ones that are like on the side of let's not kill the planet and colonialism sucks. It's kind of like Ash's character, who is anti-imperialist, let's destroy the planetist, is like Killmongerified, right? Killmonger says true things like, this planet is full of colonization. Our people have been suffering for centuries. We got to stop that, right? And it's like, oh, but Killmonger, you killed the innocent people, and you killed your own girlfriend, and that, oh. So anything you say is now bad, right? That's how Disney imperialists get away with allowing some black creators to say some true stuff. Well, I mean, he said that, and it may, but that's ridiculous because he's evil, because he killed his girlfriend, right? And so it's like, Ash's character is like, well, you said colonialism and imperialism are bad, and maybe we shouldn't destroy the planet, and that was bad. But Ash, you're also like uncool and like really just bad. So we probably shouldn't listen to what you said. That part is like, why was that necessary? Was that really necessary? Anyways, imperialism, said Ash, they're third worlding alternate realities. Calling them stubs makes that easier. So to justify, I mean, it's like a true thing. It's like, yeah, obviously that's what it is. It's called imperialism. It's called, instead of, I brought this up on a previous Peripheral stream, the people of the present, right? The people of 2100 London are literally using 2030's alternate reality, all of the whole planet, really, including South Carolina. They're using those people as test subjects. They're in the show. It's actually even worse. They're having characters go into war zones and get their legs blown up. They're like literally starting wars. The future London people are pushing the past people into wars just to test out what people will do in a certain situation. Like, what if we give a soldier that we're remote piloting with this new haptic technology that connects one soldier to 5 other members of the unit, to the point where if they sense, and one of them senses an enemy, all 5 will turn and shoot that one. They all have shared, like, almost like they have a fused shared consciousness almost, right? They have like their nervous systems are like interlinked. That's not a Blade Runner 2049 quote, but that is a word that is used often. But they are interlinked at a subconscious central nervous system sort of level with this digital nanotechnology that's been installed from the future. But then they're using the soldiers in the past that are Flynn and Flynn's brother and his fellow ex-military personnel are being used for experimental military tests to see what would or psychological tests. What would happen if we send these soldiers in and we have a wounded dog? Will the soldiers go in and, it's like Facebook was doing mass multi-million person tests on everyone. It's really like when a rich Westerner's not doing tests on poor homeless people, average Facebook, Twitter, and social media citizens, their entire populations, when are they not testing something, right? Like they're testing whether everyone will back imperialist war in Eastern Europe right now. And the answer is it works, just like it worked in the last 5 wars. But anyways, so the future London people are like abusing and just like being horrible to the people in the past. So when they call the past, alternate past, stubs, it is for the purposes of imperialism, right? It's not false. Like that's literally what they're doing. They're making money. They're doing medical tests. They're doing like pharmaceutical drug tests on the past. They're like doing what happens if we put half of a county into a war state? What happens if we just like drop this horrible, mind-altering but also deadly drug into everyone's water supply in this other state? But who and the people in the future London, and that's the thing that's also different in the Peripheral, the show, that I think was actually an improvement on the Peripheral, the book, is number one, the Lev character, this guy on the left, Mr. Billionaire Oligarch, he is made to be much more humanized, right? So they're actually humanizing the capitalist billionaire corporate oligarch in the book. Like his friend Wolf Netherton, the grating asshole white, spoiled ass white. He's all like the Sandman. I mean, my videos about that one. He actually is a lot like the Sandman. I was talking to Holly. Like, the more I thought about it, I have a video just on that in Neil Gaiman's Sandman. About I can never find what I want to find. Let me go to the front. Where's my Sandman? Yeah. Sandman, who is a character in Neil Gaiman's books, he's also a Londonite, and he also wrote around the same time. He says very similar overlap between the Neil Gaiman and the William Gibson audiences. But, in Sandman, you have this spoiled, rich, white, literal feudal oligarch of a fantasy kingdom who is just sad that he doesn't have more purpose in life. He's a bored, rich colonizer. Basically, that's his character. And then he wears a lot of black. And the Wolf Netherton, the Lev, Mr. Billionaire, is also just a bored, rich colonizer, Mr. Billionaire. But then the Netherton, who works for the Wolf guy, who works for the billionaire character, he is also just a extremely spoiled PR specialist whose biggest problem is which mega celebrity or business figure or millionaire inheritorist am I gonna fuck today? That's basically his only problem. And he drinks too much. He's just like a sad white boy. His character is very boring and very grating what he does is hate on the goth chicks who care about anything other than themselves the whole book. So it's kind of fucking annoying, actually. So, now if you're a spoiled rich white boy, which is a lot of people who read and watch cyberpunk, then it's fine for you, I'm sure, right? And you're mad that all the goth girls who rejected you because you were a sexist and told them to stop piercing their nose because you didn't like it, even though you were dating a goth chick, because you're a self-centered dude who is a man baby. And so it has if you're one of those 50-year-old Gen X dudes or boomer dudes like Gibson, who, I don't know, maybe you had a hard time getting with the goth. Obama also said, I like this goth girl, but the one that got away, she just wouldn't go out with me because, maybe because you were a self-centered fucking asshole. Oh, you're also a war criminal today, but, maybe you were always a self-centered asshole. who cared more about your net worth and getting your books published, like the audacity of genocide. I'm sorry, the audacity of hope. And so it's kind of like, it has so those grading aspects of the book in the show are greatly reduced. Where it's like instead of the main character constantly, that's one of the recasting, right? It's actually when they recast Wilf as a black character, he's actually a black orphan. It actually makes him a lot more likable. And he actually has real problems. Like, he's black in the West, which is already that's already as if you're a person of color, like, yeah, it's a racist ass place. We are treated like a subhuman. Like, unless like the rest of the West, you fell asleep. I mean, you forgot that the 2020 happened, right? And then all of the US, the UK, and half of the planet almost burned down because of the white supremacy continuing to get away with killing black people on top of the mass inequality that continues to persist. So by casting, at least the Peripheral, the show has the decency to be like, oh, maybe we should like make this character less despicable. And so by casting, not to say that if you have a black character, immediately that means he's a good character, but like, he is a black character in Britain who also survived the actual like suffering as a marginalized person under the jackpot, under this climate crisis. Like, it's kind of implied that he is the survivor of the disproportionate impacts of climate change that are on the global south, like Africa and Asia, etc., and Latin America, right? He came to Europe. He or his family came to Europe to survive the disproportionate colonial, which is racist, impacts against Africa. And now Britain itself, in the beginning of one of the episodes, he and his sister Aida, who is a white girl, are two orphans, right, in this hellscape future. And the rich British family only wants to adopt a white girl. And they don't say, oh, it's because you're black and I hate black people. But these are rich, posh British family, and they're like their body language, their facial expressions, they're implying, we only want one of you. We only want the white orphan. It's like on. I mean, it's like, in that sense, it's like on point for what happened in. I mean, it's on point. I mean, in that sense, the show is saying a lot more in what I think is important in today, as racist capitalism, imperialism are the biggest problems still that are much bigger than artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a neutral technology in a lot of ways. Along with the climate impact is we can deal with it, but not if we don't deal with those other capitalist, racist, continued colonialism. And so like the Peripheral is like, at least the show is actually trying, it does a better job of attacking important topics in a cyberpunk sense than even the book does. Not to say the book is bad, but in that sense it is, because the character is like literally, that's like a lot of his character it's literally just written and it's recreated for the show as a black immigrant who is racially refused back into the war zone, really, in a lot of ways, right? He's like the black children that are being pushed back into harm's way as the blonde-haired, blue-eyed children in Ukraine, right? The U.S.'s proxy war Nazi factory. And the Ukrainian children are being taken by France and Britain and Germany and all these Western European countries and celebrated and held and paraded around. And all of these black children are left to suffer and starve. Not just in Ukraine, in Yemen, in all kind of African countries. And Europe wants black people, like it wants Asian people to say, right? Don't talk about how we're racist. Shh, 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 don't talk. Don't talk about that, right? And so I appreciate that at least the Peripheral the whole show is not just about that, but like that's a very significant alteration of the show to the original story that in a positive way. Recasting as a black orphan and making him a not completely unbearable PR person. So yeah, so then the Will character. Anyway, so back to this. So his character is working, but he's still very lucky to be one of the survivors, right, of that horrible extinction, 20-year apocalyptic extinction event. It's like the Don't Look Up meteor hits over the course of 20, 30 years, right? And so his character is working for Mr. Billionaire Oligarch, and Mr. Billionaire Oligarch is having the truth said by another character. And another recasting that I think works really well is that Ash, which is a white goth girl, and it would have been fine. It would have been totally fine to have the white goth chick be like, "Fuck you, rich dickhead." And also, I'm not gonna have sex with you just because you're turned on by my black eyeliner. If you keep being a misogynistic, self-centered prick, right? That doesn't really happen in the book, but you know, I read that in that, like, you know, I actually said, Gibson, I need you to write Ash like spin kicking the other 10 through a glass window in the next book. Otherwise, I'm gonna have a silver spooky aneurysm attack, and you know, my cyber brain is gonna churn out 25 more hours of rants just about that. Anyways, no, but the Ash character is recast as well, not really recast, but it's not. She's not Asian in the book. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's implied that she is very, very white. And so the Ash character being recast now, it's not. I always point out, like, Ash was supposed to be a lot younger as well, and so the character is older, and that does change things as well. But the Ash character being recast as the Asian in scenes like this one gives it a whole new impact, right? Where Ash is saying imperialism, we're third worlding alternate realities, calling themselves makes it easier. And so by having the showrunners like one up the Gibson cyberpunk by having an Asian fire that salvo at the Londonite, axing the anti-goth hate in the book, and just getting rid of all the anti-goth stuff. It's like, why is that? What does that help? What does that do? Right? Certainly for your main character, who is ostensibly, I mean, because the main character is, you know, the main character is not meant to be hateable. I mean, they have problems, but you don't want it to be just like terrible garbage people, because people are not going to want to read your book. So if your main character is is being written to be empathetic and sympathetic, why that stuff is, it doesn't, multiple entire chapters are spent hating on the goth chick. Why was that necessary? Anyways, I think it's something particular. There's some weird, you know, there's some history going on there in the mind of some people, that is just like it's like a sore point trigger, you know. And I'm not gonna say any more than that. Let's put it that way. But it's like, maybe you don't do that anymore. Anyway, so but when the Asian character, you know, in the same way that like, you know, when in the Foreigner, right? In the same way that in The Foreigner with Jackie Chan, it gives it a whole nother level, right? Because this show, it would have been fine with just, you know, the IRA blow up a bomb in London, and the London bomb, the London bombers are investigated, and it would have been a whodunit, political intrigue, action, you know, kung fu, gunfights, explosions, right? You know, it would have been fine. But then making a main character an Asian in the UK, that gives it a whole another level of meaning that it wouldn't have had without that. Making him a Vietnamese person, it gives it a whole nother level of meaning. And so recasting casting Ash as an Asian, and the Asian saying imperialism, right? As an actual Asian person whose family and whose people have suffered horrible imperialism, right? Like I've been talking about for the last 2 hours. It gives it a whole nother resonance to it. Right? Calling themselves makes it easier. And so that's one of the scenes that, like, I'm glad that they left the entirety of that scene in. They cut out entire chapters of the original book. They cut a lot of what else did they cut? I'm drawing blanks right now, but I know they cut a whole lot. They cut characters. They cut other stuff about Ash. They cut as I said, they cut the whole chapter where the Wilf guy, who was originally the sad white boy, just is hating on the goth girl. They cut that all, because it doesn't really add that much, you know. And in a TV show, all of that is internal monologue. Almost all of that whole chapter, it has about 3 sentences of dialogue. Everything else is just a dude talking to himself about how he's how he didn't get laid in college from the girl at the New Wave concert, and she like had a poster that had the Cure on it or something, and he's still mad about that. That's supposed to like, and it's like that's not necessary. It doesn't expand the book very much. And so they cut that, but they left in the show left in the scene where it's they also left this entire scene verbatim. Like I was listening to the lines in the show. The sentences are almost word for word the same. Like that exact sentence is in the book that's up on the screen, and many other ones. So like, and that's like a very important part of it. And I thought that like that's the decision to leave that in was very good. And that's why I actually, was so much so I don't usually tweet about that stuff. I haven't tweeted about this recently, but I'm like, I had to tweet about that whole fucking thing because I'm like, where else am I gonna talk about this? Also, 2100 London as a cross between Hammered Shit, a city-sized ghost mall, and Red Carpetier Playground. Nailed it. Future and present London. So this, and I've shown this picture before, but the London of the the London of 2100 is differently screwed up, right? The London of the present day is full of austerity. People are dying in the street. Homeless people are being attacked by robots and pushed off of benches. London is doing worse than the United States in terms of the mass collapse of the material conditions. London's the wages have gone down 25% in London in the last decade. In the UK generally, but especially in the mega cities like London. So London is already garbage. That's kind of the backhanded joke about this one, which is that future London is dystopian, but present London is dystopian. In fact, historical London was dystopian as well. That's what Charles Dickens' entire please, Mr. Scrooge, can you spare a single morsel of bread before me and Tiny Tim starve to death and drink your polluted, River Thames water filled with your feces and your shit thrown out by all of your white, unwashed ass fellow Londonites? Please, Mr. Scrooge. I mean, London was dystopian in the 1800s, 1850s. It was dystopian in the 1950s. Well, it was bound to shit because of imperialist wars that the Anglo-Saxons that came out of London helped start. So, hey, that's all on you. It's all on you, Churchill, you 27 million Indian murderer. And then blaming it on the fact that they're backward Indians. I mean, in India. 1850s London was a dystopian shithole with literal shit everywhere. 1950s London was mid 20th century London was bombed to shit, and there was a different flavor of shithole based on their own imperialist racism. And then 2020s London is still a shithole because they continue to complain. All that London makes is, the TSX, the London Stock LSX, the London Stock Exchange is a global cesspool of fraud. That's all it was for the last 20 years, with people like Blythe Masters and the world LIBOR. The price of money itself was being rigged in London. All of the subprime, no income, no jobs, no assets, global fraud scheme to jack up banksters' billions was all passed through London. London is a sewer. Financial shit. Hyper financial, digital, high frequency trading shit, literal buckets of shit. Oi, mate, are you the butcher of Baker Street? Have a pile of shit on your blood smeared face. Literal shit, digital shit, financial shit, bullshit, PR and Western media that comes out of BBC. Like China has 200 million dead IUD filled Uyghurs, on top of another 5 billion dead protesters. In Taiwan has Hong Kong forced labored protester Wuhan flu spreading, dystopian AI shredders in them, and the British don't care that that's Japanese, Chinese, and wrong about all, because the West don't give a shit about any Asians, right? So London spreads literal shit, bullshit, digital financial shit, imperialist propaganda shit, 1850, 1950, 2020, and 2100. So the joke is on London, man. The joke's on London. It's like, you thought that that's the worst that it could get? You thought 2100 London? Actually, 2100 is less shitty because there's less freaking dickheads walking down the street, right, throwing acid on your face because you're an Asian woman, right? London actually better in 2100 because it has less fucking racist white people in it. Maybe that actually makes it better. In fact, there's less white people. I mean, there's less all people around. But actually, all the people a lot of people in London in 2100, they're all like, people. There's a lot of people of color for some reason. There's like the Asian Ash goth girl. There's a black PR person that's more relatable, and there's another like non-white but Irish or Scottish. They speak this cryptic, constantly modulating form of Esperanto crossed with Gaelic. I'm not sure what it is, but it's I think in the book it's a constantly modulating language between the two security personnel so that nobody can decrypt what they're actually saying when they're speaking to each other. They actually do that in the show. It's really weird. But anyways, I think it might be actually Esperanto. Anyways, what they're actually speaking, I don't know. And so, but all the people working for the rich white, now at least it's a little still honest. Like it's still three non-white people doing vastly underpaid, disproportionate amounts of work for some rich white dude, Lev Zubov. So that's still London, still the West. But I mean, there's like a lot of people of color in London. The head of one of the three most powerful entities, the Research Institute is a black woman. But again, that doesn't mean that it's all good because Obama was president. But it's a little more diversity there. And there's a trans woman, a black woman, and then there's the rich old white dude, running the triumvirate running shit in London. It's like 2 out of 3 are not white dudes. One's a trans person, one's a black person. So London has got a lot less shitty in 2100 in that sense. It's a lot less full of that shit. People aren't throwing buckets of shit out the window. There's so few people. If you walk down the streets of London, you don't have chances of picking up COVID-19, monkeypox, Omicron, Epsilon, Delta virus, and 25 other viruses, right? And then giving their population a mass disabling event plus a huge, massive death rate that's going to implode your economy, which is what London is doing right now by spreading COVID everywhere and the government pretending like nothing's happening, as you have 95% of the population will have long COVID, at least one form of mass disability in 4 to 5 years at the current rate of transmission that they're not even reporting on. So actually 2100 London is actually an improvement on 2020 London by a long shot. In that sense, now it sucks that 80% of the population died. That's sad. That is very sad. But now if you're a Londonite and you love your London, I'm sorry. But also it's like, that this is the time when you imperialists that have run this planet get to shut up and listen and be uncomfortable. So deal with that. You want real cyberpunk? That's cyberpunk. The cyberpunk is not. Oh look, there's an AI and there's a robot that can shoot missiles out of its butt. Or look, I have a robot arm that can chainsaw, street samurai. I have a robot arm that can chainsaw hordes of Asian stereotypes with samurai swords and neon glasses. That's not cyberpunk. That's just anti-Asian hate and action movie bullshit with neon characteristics and some techno bullshit. Iron Man by that definition is cyberpunk, and that guy is not. So anyways, by the Silver Spook definition. Anyways, so I have been talking. It's now 1:21. I didn't talk about AI very much, but I did want to say something. Another thing I just said earlier today on the present, as an indigenous artist, the unjust transition. Because I'm also, Hawaii is a colonized place under ongoing U.S. occupation, banning of Hawaiian language or culture, subjugation of all the people, destruction of our universal healthcare, the world's highest universal literacy rate, 98% literacy in Hawaii. Right? It's like the man in the iron mask. The London, in its child, the United States, as one of the Anglo-Saxon imperial complex, showed up and did what they did to China in Hawaii. I've gone off on that specifically at length on multiple streams. But as an indigenous colonized person artist, the unjust transition, that's what let's come to the present. COP27, right? They're talking about the unjust transition and the just transition. That's like Now, the COP27 G7 white colonizers are not talking about that. They don't really care about justice, right? It's like if they cared about justice, there would be justice for not just George Floyd, all the black people that are rotting in prison doing slave labor, and all of the African countries that are being thrown under the bus, and then be called genocide doers, right? Because they don't support Nazis in Ukraine, and are still being plundered to this day. So COP27 is a cop out, like COP26 was, right? Speaking of this topic, and then the unjust. So the just transition, right? South African workers are outraged at an $8.5 billion climate change deal signed by the government in 2022 United Nations Climate Change Conference, which was supported by Germany, France, the UK, the US, and the EU. So all the usual suspects, right? Germany, France, the US NATO alliance, all these imperialists, all these tea-sipping motherfuckers, and with their Oktoberfests and their pea soup and their overpriced French wine, with oppressed imported non-white labor working on their little vineyards. At the COP26 consists of highly concessionary loans that will lay off 100,000 co-workers and benefit individual capitalists and international banks. I played this on a Wednesday stream, so I won't play the whole video again, but also I think we'll get in trouble on YouTube. The national spokesperson for the National Union of Metalworkers of South Africa explains how the deal does very little to address climate change and could wipe out poor and working classes in South Africans. So the major takeaway in this that I was bringing up is that, yes, we have to transition to green and renewable technologies for the sake of the climate and the ecology and the earth, right? But when the transition is unjust, it means transition to renewables under colonialism, where colonialism is maintained by airbrushing it as green, right? And as an example, the companies that are the renewable technology companies, now it's unclear that they're actually going to use a lot of renewable technology. I mean, a lot of this is just the countries of the US and the UK and Canada and Germany are ramping up coal massively, right? So it's actually what a lot of people are saying is, this is not the ostensible green technology they're going to bring in is probably not even going to be very green. It's green washing a dirty recolonial process to take the advances, because they have at least some public nationalized, which means not for profit, energy establishments, right? That state-owned enterprises, like in China, right? Speaking of the East, right, and the West struggle, that's how China has massively improved the lives of 1.4 billion people. The greatest success story in terms of poverty alleviation and dealing with climate. China has actually reduced total emissions this year, and the West has jacked them up massively, despite them still coming out as a developing economy from the shackles of colonization, right? And so South Africa has just got a slight foot in with the state-owned enterprise. And already, right, these fucking tea sippers, man, these motherfuckers, you know? Where is it, dude? Oh. I lost my tea sipper. Where is my tea sipping Londonite frickin'... well, you're one of the tea sippers. You know? Where is Lev Zubov, you know? The frickin' Western capitalist colonizers, this dude, right, in the Peripheral, they're back in Africa already. He's all like, oh, you want a state-owned enterprise that benefits the masses of your working class people using a small percentage of barely 1% relative to the Western consumption of carbon. You want to use a little coal to just help your people out, even though you're consuming way less per capita carbon emissions using your coal energy to build your economy. Oh, did you think you're going to get out from colonization? South Africa? Africa generally? Latin America? Asia? Well, guess what? You're all going to be green now. And by green, I mean, we're going to put a we're going to put a solar panel with an Elon TED Talk and a smiling little, a smiling little African child held by a German Nazi running a wind farm somewhere that's not even operating because he's all invested in coal. And we're going to greenify South Africa by making the green in terms of greenbacks, reprivatizing all your state-owned enterprises, and then not doing green at all. We're actually going to take your state-owned enterprises, do a token solar panel, and then we're going to take all the coal money and put it back into private pockets. That's actually what COP27 is about. COP27 is overrun by the military-industrial complex, Exxon, the big dirty industries, right? It's a joke, right? Even Greta Thunberg, who is a freaking Sweden, you know, it's like Greta is like, has said, is kind of on the white side of things, you know, like not saying the most base things always, but now at least Greta's been like, fuck, we can't deal with this capitalism. Capitalism has to go. And now, she's like, he's not even showing up to COP27 because it's a cop out. That's about greenwashing, continued imperialism and colonialism, and it's not even that green. It's mostly just continuing colonialism and with continued polluting. While the West pretends like it gives a shit, it doesn't. It doesn't give a fuck. They're still the West, the U.S., Canada, Europe. They're still the biggest polluters. The military that they all support, the U.S. and all of the European countries, is the biggest mega polluter. The U.S. military and all of their countries' militaries are by far consuming, as an entity, the most resources, and they're all for war. Ukraine war, Taiwan war, global war, and global imperialism. So you cannot even begin to talk about environmentalism, green technology, solar punk, renewable, just or unjust transitions if you are still a pro-war at scale country, which all the Western countries are. They're all going down to, they're all full Nazification up there in Sweden, Finland. All the UK does is pump out more anti-China propaganda to start another Ukraine in Taiwan to get millions of more people suffering, displaced, and killed for infinite racist capitalist colonialism. With a little green, with a little leaf emoji, and a hands holding a planet and a hologram of a Michael Jackson concert. Heal the world or some shit, heal the world. Let's give aid to Africa, which is actually neo-colonialism, and we don't give a fuck about the black race, cause there's people dying and we're making money off it. It's a better place for you and for me. That's the West. That's Western aid, right? Take this loan, enslave your people again, so rich white douchebags can make bundles of cash. There are people dying and our Nazis doing the killing. We're funding Nazis to the tune of 52 billion in Ukraine. Anyways, that's about as good as your COP26 ever gonna get from these clowns. Anyways, so I'm gonna do my Africa aid concert. I'm gonna do a China aid, Hawaii aid concert. That's what I'm gonna do. That's how I've sold out, because I start singing songs to 3 million screaming white people, right? Throwing all their money to support imperialist war in Taiwan. Heal Taiwan, make it American place. With democracy and nuclear bombs in their face. Cause there's warmongers dying. Cause they haven't made another trillion. Selling Lockheed Martin and Raytheon bombs. And when I start doing Taiwan aid concerts, that's how I've sold out. And I was anyways, Jackie Chan's gonna come to my house. Jackie Chan's gonna come to my house. He's gonna be like, Jackie Chan's like, you know what? I'm over London. I'm coming to Silver Spook's house. I'm gonna give him a rabbit punch to his eye. I'm gonna Viet Cong Silver Spook. After I do, he's like, you freaking sold out. You sold out to the colonizers. You gotta come to my house after that. Anyways, okay, I'm just joking. Unjust transition though. So my point is that again, I'm not saying that transitioning off of fossil fuel, coal, non-renewable energy to solar, wind, water, etc. and nuclear is one of those. Artificial sun fusion generation, but we can't talk about who's leading in that, because that might disturb some white people. Because it's not a white country, by the way, and it's not a capitalist country, by the way. So if we want to have the green transition, we do have to talk about the just transition, though, right? Versus the unjust transition. right? Like Vijay Prashad had a big speech that was very on point with this, right? Which is like, you know, we don't. A lot of this is about the Western capitalist Angloid countries showing up in Africa. They're in Egypt, but it doesn't really matter where it is. Showing up in Africa, showing up in Asia, showing up in Latin America, showing up in indigenous people spaces, right? Like the vegans on Twitter, all the white imperialist vegans, right? Celebrating their Nazi cops and then getting mad at indigenous people who are actually stopping the climate change, going, you're immoral because you didn't stop enough climate change, indigenous person, while I stand on your neck. It's like that Global South. You know that Global South meme? Global South, the chariot meme. The Global South socialist, I'm gonna find that. Global South, God damn it! You know that one, the Global South. Yeah. Oh shit, I can't find it. It's like, yeah, what Western left is like, you know, you're doing your revolution wrong. Like cracking the whip on the Global South that's carrying the entire chariot of global progress. Global South socialist country, like getting the non-white countries getting whipped. Like, you're doing your revolution wrong. You're doing socialism wrong. You're doing anti-capitalism wrong. You're doing mass collective mutual aid wrong, and the white people whipping, you know what I'm talking about? And so like that attitude of like, we have the answers. We're gonna tell Africa, we're gonna tell Asia, we're gonna tell indigenous people, we're gonna tell Latin America, we're gonna tell Pacific islands like Hawaii, Fiji, random South Pacific country, you can't work with China because they're authoritarian, they have no human rights and no democracy, right? This is lecturing, right? We can't even start to get to a just transition if you know that if we can't have discussions that involve the most successful in actually making progress on capitalism, on the racism, on the colonialism fronts, right? On global peace. There's one country that's a superpower that is in the top 3 most powerful. It really is the largest economically and certainly science and technologically, right? That has not been at war in the last 40 years, right? That does not have military bases around the world. There's one country, right? If we cannot talk about that country, right, in like actual rational terms, then how can we get ever to a just transition? How can we ever start to deal with anti-Asian racism inside or outside? How can you get to these we're never gonna get to one, right? Well, not we. I should say the West will have it will continue to struggle to come out from the shackles of its own mind poison, its own mind prison, you know? Like, you know, you are trapped in there. You know, the West is not like this guy, the billionaire plutocrat class of the US and the UK and Europe, etc., and the capitalist countries. You are not being protected by the rulers of DC, Wall Street, and London from Russia and China and some nasty terrorists in the Middle East and some fear of being overtaken by a growing Africa. You are not being protected by those people. You are being enslaved by those people in your own mind, and you don't even realize it, you know? Those people continue to benefit, and it's like, but this kind of like tired old trope of like, well, it's terrible that we have rich, powerful, disproportionately white dudes running everything, but that's just how it is, you know? Like, that is not gonna hack it anymore, you know? That's not gonna hack it in cyberpunk. It's not gonna hack it in science fiction generally. It's not gonna hack it in fiction, in fantasy, you know? Lord of the Rings would be great if you just go back to the posh white elves and everyone else not existing in Middle Earth in fantasy Europe, and black and brown people have to just go away again, you know? Like, you know, that's a you know, that desire to just go back into the safety where you didn't have to listen to the rest of the world, right? Is where people like this want you to go. They want you to go. That's why they push the Nazi parties. That's why the Democratic Party is like as right wing as the Republican Party was 5 years ago, right? And everyone's all going and sliding right and right and right, because that, you know, it is about making America great again. But it's not just about make America great again. It's not just MAGA. It's make Europe, the European as a white supremacist itself project, as a Christian supremacist, white supremacist, imperial project fundamentally. right? It's make us colonizer again. Like it was so great in that time, and just going like, well, we can't change it, so we should just lean into our horrible stormtrooper selves, right? Is not an option, you know. It's not an. I mean, now if you're 70-year-old science fiction writer, you're going to be out soon. Just like if you're Donald Trump, you're an 80, 70, 80-year-old president or ex-president Biden or Trump. They don't give a fuck. But the old rich people that are like, well, I'm going to be dead soon, I don't care. So let's all just keep on working for me. Let's just keep sliding in this direction that we're already sliding in and not look outside of our little brainwashed boxes of Western formal, informal school, not just Western propaganda, not just right-wing media, all the media, Western propaganda, formal education and informal education, and all the entertainment, which is what I'm talking about now. But I mean, I'm talking about everything all the time, really. And so the just transition, you can't get to that until we're talking about all the cards of the planet Earth are on the table. But when we're only talking about, you know, a handful of countries, when we're not talking about their whole histories, right? When we're not talking about, again, that's why the Iron Mask as the entertainment version of the history that people need to learn in the West. We're not talking about the whole history. Even like, you know, you can not like Vladimir Putin all you want, but he's like the history of racism and colonialism. He does like leave out some things about Russia, which is not perfect, but he says the great truths about the last 500 years of the whole story of the colonial, which was a racist and it was a capitalist led and it was a Western, Anglo-Saxon, Franco and Spaniard led era. And if you can't accept and deal with that, you can't just like look away from that. You're never gonna get a just transition, anyways. But I've already said that many times as an indigenous artist. But the unjust transition is also the thing that's happening to AI art with AI art under capitalism as well, where mega corporations become more mega by mass firing working creators, and it mirrors the unjust transition in that in the renewable technology with the global South versus the global North, right? Where yeah, it's AI is not necessarily bad, right? And I've made that one. I've talked about that at length. I think I talked about the last stream possibly, but AI is not necessarily bad. AI can increase the efficiency of ports and trains can be run faster. AI increases. It can do lots and lots and lots of jobs. I mean, autopiloting on planes is part of artificial intelligence as well. Autopiloting for self-driving cars, if they were programmed properly, not run by a capitalist dickhead like Elon, might function and not get people killed, like Elon's cars that speed off at 70 miles per hour in the middle of an attempt to park and kill people. So, but that's a symptom of what we're just talking about, which is that like under capitalist operation, one of the negative impacts of the, you know, a technology which we should generally be agnostic toward and neutral, which is generally neutral, artificial intelligence under a capitalist structure is used to, like, for example, DALL-E and these artificial intelligent image generators, right? Now they're calling it art, but I wouldn't really call it that necessarily. I'll call it mass human artist theft that is then recombined and mashed up to make new images that people with no talent can pretend to be art, because people are selling this art at conventions. They're like, I'm an AI artist. I type words into somebody else's code and I sell that art for $50 or $100 to $500 at this art convention in this art gallery. An AI art recently won a art competition in Colorado. You know, next thing is going to be in Sotheby's, right? Which is no, it probably won't because there's too much of it. And you can't gatekeep it well enough in that way. But like, which brings up questions about what is art to begin with. If much of what art under capitalist colonialism and racism, but certainly under capitalism, amounts to is old, dead, white dudes, right? Like Van Gogh, whose scribblings are conveniently propped up in privileged, exclusive venues like Sotheby's art auction in London, right? Took a hit during COVID, but that's what NFTs are for. For the purpose of moving billions of dollars, right, through across international borders by rolling up, because one Van Gogh can be worth millions of dollars. $1 million, if you have several $1 million, that weighs hundreds of pounds. A Van Gogh weighs, 4 ounces. So you're moving that across. It's really literally, it's about art services, international money laundering, and billionaire wealth transfers. They're basically lightweight, space-saving bank vaults. That's what art is. Fine art, right? That's what art, high art, right? It's privilege. It's like you duct tape a banana to a wall in London. I'm over here, I'm stuck in London all day now. You duct tape a banana to a wall in London, take a picture of it, and it's worth $3 million. They literally sold that at an art auction, right? And then so what even passes as art? No, that doesn't mean that people painting pictures of scenery and landscapes and making even like 2D, 3D art, video games as art. Neofeud, I would call it. That's art. I made that art, right? That I made. I painted the pictures, created the game, wrote the story, did the animations, did the backgrounds. That's there's some amount of artificial intelligence in my games, but I also did the painting of the 2D art, the animation art, the 3D art in Terminus Machina, the 3D world that is. And so it doesn't mean that art is bad, but art, the transition to an artificial intelligence art generating future where all of your future blockbuster movies will have all of your Captain America's can be 3D generated with AI generators. Your 2D indie game art is generated by AI generators. Your art galleries are full of AI art, and all of the hundreds of thousands of 2D artists at game companies and movie companies, the 3D artists are all now jobless. People who used to, sell their small scale art, NFTs were already screwing with that, right? Because people making money from NFTs were disproportionately rich white guys with no talent, like the white guy in Big Eyes, taking advantage of his actually talented white wife, or his female partner, in a world in which, women can't be recognized as being great artists. So put your work under my name, right? So under capitalism, we're stealing other people's work, which can take some effort to benefit, and by giving credit to the wealthiest, whitest guy like Elon Musk, right, in the room, by expropriating other people's labor value and crediting it to the bosses, crediting it to so-called, galaxy brain S9 geniuses like Mr. Elon. I'm a 5 million IQ person who couldn't figure out that COVID-19 would not be gone in April 2020 and was off by a factor of 10, even about when the sun was going to go red giant, although claiming to be some kind of expert in multiplanetary astronomy and civilization building. He couldn't build his way out of a fucking cave. He couldn't build his way out of his own house without accidentally setting his house on fire, like all of his Teslas set people on fire. So Elon is a complete. Now he obviously setting Twitter on fire right now. So artificial intelligence under a capitalist structure, artificial intelligence generated art under capitalism can result in a mass net negative impact, because the many people who need the job to survive. Now the thing is, under a socialist communist system, the people who would not necessarily need to be competing at a high level for a job, the people might have to still do work. People would not be like constantly under threat of losing their housing, their healthcare, their material conditions, their ability to eat, to feed their children, if there wasn't a capitalist structure to start, right? Food, healthcare, housing, these are all human rights in China, Vietnam, Cuba, these other places, right? And so the AI art, so even before that, capitalism has already caused jeopardy and a problem for people. But then under AI art, the people lose their jobs, are thrown into more poverty because of that. And the people who are massively going to be benefiting, they already have benefited. They're just going to keep benefiting from automation will be the mega corporations, the billionaire class, the wealthy, etc. So anyway, so there's an you know, and so as an independent indigenous artist, it is fucking like I don't look forward to this future. And also people are already accusing artists who do create their own art of not being real artists because, well, they just plug that into an AI generator, right? So it makes it easier for the powerful to erase creative people's blood, sweat, and tears and toil and labor. It actually undercapitalized. It could make the lives of humanity better by creating more total output, more art, more creativity, more art everywhere on the walls, on screens. People who are incapable of doing certain types of art are now able to do it, and that's not bad, and that some of that can happen. But another bigger impact in terms of the actual material reality of people is that people become more impoverished, artists become less respected, creative people, which one of the last jobs for humanity was in the creative world. That's marketeers too. That's marketeers. That's anyone who makes any images, graphic design, anything, which is already being automated. Writers, a lot of writing, sports writing, news writing is already largely automated by AI that take, especially financial data, sports data, and generate, prose stories from that. So that is not necessarily bad because you can have more information and more productivity with less total input. But if the people who are doing the work are not justly transitioned, right? If this artist who spent years and decades honing the craft of their painting, their 3D sculpture, their graphic arts, their compositing in After Effects or whatever art they do, right? If they're not justly transitioned, right? It's actually the part of the colonialism, right? In South Africa, the complaint was less than 0.1% of the money that the UK, US, EU, France, Germany were going to be, again, it was debt also. We're going to be the debt, which is a debt trap, neo-colonization already. Even if it was green, which it is probably a lie. They're actually revealing that because less than 0.1% of the money that was earmarked was for retraining, right? Reskilling the co-workers in renewable technology. Suggesting what? Suggesting they're not going to be transitioning to solar, right? And even if they were, it's like you need to help the people get the new skills in the new green economy, but they're not, right? So similarly, if the artists who are being mass laid off, working for the game companies, working for the movie companies, making media and art and beauty in the world generally, had a just transition where like, okay, well now you're going to work on this other job, whatever that is. You're going to plant trees. You're going to, code this, or you're going to work on cultural revitalization. You're going to work on, ethnic, reducing ethnic strife. There's jobs like that in all over in the East and in Asia, because that's a job. Things that people can do, like educating on indigenous struggles, working on the climate transition, right? If there was some kind of like mass organized project to help the people that are going to be suffering under the mass obsolescence, mass unemployment created by the AI generated art, then you might have some more just transition. But again, that's not even on the table. That's not even discussed, let alone likely to happen, right? What's likely to happen is richest people will lay off everybody. The people who have the free time to dick around with DALL-E are disproportionately upper middle class white dudes who can sit around because they have free time at all, because everyone else is struggling to make ends meet, try not to die from COVID, working at their essential job, flipping burgers and, trying to get their kids to daycare full of fucking COVID, variant 12, variant 300, and trying to survive. And so the people have the time to spend to fulfill their life by typing in what would a, furry dick covered in cyberpunk and cotton candy look like, right? Which is what a lot of people are putting in DALL-E. Let's be fucking real. I know it doesn't go on porn, but a lot of the stuff that people are putting into the AI art generators is, I'm not saying it's, if you got something out of it, I'm not saying like, oh, that's bad, but it's like the people who have the ability and the time and energy to spend screwing around, like people who spend the time screwing around in Second Life, right, are disproportionately rich white dudes, right? Because everyone else don't have the free time to explore what it might be like in this fun future. They're like trying to not get homeless today. They're trying to like not starve today because all the food kitchens are drying up because all y'all's war has put huge breakers on the supply chain, and your COVID and your just global continued self-destruction is causing havoc. And so whatever good little token goods might come out, it's kind of like, oh, you know what's great is, if we have artificial intelligence, we have whatever the technology is, great things can happen. Renewable nuclear technology is good, when it's used for the benefit of humanity, not threatening the destruction of everything on Earth, right? And the thing is, a lot of coal companies specifically try to stop in the Western capitalist world the use of nuclear for the positive benefits, right? And so similarly, the kind of powers that run the West are going to stop the uses as much as possible of artificial intelligence. Because if you're spending too much time dicking around in DALL-E, well, hey, you're not working hardcore enough, like Elon is demanding all of his workers, right? So the possible hypothetical positives that could come out of new technologies are truncated and overwhelmed because of the existing, unhealed stormtrooper ways from the Roman trauma, capitalism, imperialism, racism. Because of those structures, the possible benefits are massively outweighed by the negatives of the new technologies, right? Anyway, so that's why I'm like, I program artificial intelligence as a living. I can't be like, our AI is bad, we should get rid of all computers, obviously. But it's like the way that and I'm not even saying like, oh, you can't use image generators or you're evil and you're going to go to hell. You're going to go to cyber hell. No, it's like the artificial intelligence is used to fully automate what would take hundreds of thousands or millions of people in Shanghai, Guangzhou, and other ports, the most active ports in the world, fully automated in China. Renewable technology generation, weather prediction, trains, robot dogs, they're actually used in positive ways, like to bring joy to children's lives. Rather, robot dogs are used to attack and bite Hispanic children and beat up black people in the United States for the police forces that have robot dogs. Robot police murder dogs, that's what they have. But they have joy-bringing cultural exchange robot dogs in China, right? Because they have a functioning society in the East, right? Because they don't run by capitalist dickheads, right? The total, just a couple quick statistics. I gotta go. It's almost 2, but just a couple quick statistics that you might be interested in on that topic, because I said a lot of stuff, and people might be like, Silverspook, I don't believe you. Dongsheng News has an update on this, and you can follow. I recommend to follow them if you want to learn more about this. Where is my data here? Sorry. Yeah. So the richest in China's wealth fell by 18% this year, from 21 to 22. In the U.S., it grew by almost the same amount. The U.S. richest billionaires gained 6.5 trillion or 15% wealth, and in China, their wealth fell by 18%. China surpasses the U.S. It has also surpassed the U.S. in the total number of universities. Let me get that on the screen while I talk about that briefly. The total number of universities. Yeah, so here's the one about Taiwan is still on the table. That's very important. I'm talking about that often, but in particular, U.S. continued attempts to start another proxy, a needless, murderous military-industrial complex benefiting proxy war in Taiwan is going to be terrible. So we have to stop that. But on the total numbers, the number of super rich in China has declined by 1,305 people, have in excess of $690 million, down 11% from last year, and the total number of people in excess of like $700 million has dropped 11%, and their total wealth has dropped even more by 18%, right? And a lot of that is, they're donating a lot in response to Common Prosperity's mission. Now, donation doesn't necessarily solve the problems if it only buys you political capital, but the total, the capacity to rein in the revenue generated, the massive wealth generated by the industrialization and productive growth in China has to be remarked upon. That it is not, the United States has not have such changes made, right? Certainly not in a Great Depression, some wealth was lost, But there's never been a case where the total wealth of the country is growing in a growth period economically, right? Building functional rail and functioning cars, infrastructure, bridges, roads, 5G, 6G, satellites. The U.S. is not even doing that now, right? It's actually the opposite. The U.S. population, the real economy is collapsing as people are running out of food, healthcare, housing, supply chains are going into the dirt, nosediving, right? Boeing planes are coming out broken, like I talked about last time. And then the richest are getting richer. In China, the real economy is growing, right? And there are rich people there because they have a mixed system as part of dealing with a imperialist, capitalist, hegemon-filled world. But as the country is growing, they have some billionaire class, which is not, they know that's not good. But the amount of billionaires as the country is growing is actually shrinking. So the country is moving in a direction of massive wealth and technological scientific development that is being increasingly more evenly distributed, right? To use a cyberpunk term. The future is here, it's just not evenly distributed, right? China is the place that is more evenly distributing the future in a sense of technological improvements, solar panels on houses, functioning places like the rural villages with robot dogs that are not there to kill them, like American police dogs are killing Hispanics and black people in their poverty-stricken ghettos, right? The poorest parts of China are getting way better off. The richest parts are still well off and getting slightly less well off. The U.S. has the richest are getting hyper richer, and the poorest and the middle class are falling through the cracks. So it's literally you can see the total night and day differences. So when the West goes, well, neither Washington nor Beijing, that is an imperialist talking point. That is universalization of Western problems. Anyways, government announces plan to implement private pensions as state fund. The important ones is like the economy is extending proportion of loans to real estate sector. They had a real estate problem. There was too much investment. A lot of it was Western Wall Street and European investment into Chinese real estate, and the Chinese said, no, you're not going to do that anymore. And they literally just like destroyed entire real estate companies. They just literally behead bankers and mass arrest entire executive floors of large corporations, real estate firms, and banks in China on a routine basis. That's what the U.S. hasn't even done any of that at all. They put like one Madoff in prison because he ripped off Bill Gates and Elon at the same time, and then they threw like one Indian quant, like a low-level guy, to the wolves. There's been no high-level bank real estate. Imagine if all of the CEOs of Walmart, of all the FANG, big Silicon Valley, all went to prison, right? Imagine Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Raytheon CEOs, and not just the CEO, all of the top-level staff and their whole boards all went to prison. You ever heard that happen? You would know in front page because America would be like, look at how good, look, we're actually reining in the hyper-capitalist excesses, right? You ever heard that? That doesn't happen. Right? That's because you don't have a functioning country. It's a plutocratic shitscape. It's like 2100 London, but worse because there's even more white people. Anyways, I'm not saying that we have to like get rid of them, but it's just like it's not that much different from a dystopian nightmare in the present UK and US, and that's not the same as what's happening in China. So anyway, 26% of totals. China's growth in October was the lowest since 2019, and bank loans grew. So credit growth is a problem when you have mass hyper. For example, right, the reason why Twitter lost so much valuation all of a sudden, Amazon, all the tech companies, right, not just Twitter, Amazon laid off way more people, 10,000 plus. All the big techs, and then big corporations doing mass layoffs. Amazon, Facebook did mass layoffs. Instagram was Facebook, same thing. All those big tech companies are doing huge layoffs all at the same time. Why are they doing that? Well, because they mass overhired. Why were they doing that? Well, because so much mountains of free money was just flowing, trillion, 6 trillion, 20 trillion. It's like 20 to 30 trillion in the last 10 years. It's like unhinged, unthinkable previously amounts of money were just being flooded into the Western economic systems from Central Bank of the United States, ECB in Japan, but especially the United States, all the Western countries. And all that money was just flowing into broken Teslas, right? one, Tesla was valuated like 500 times more per car than Toyota and GM, etc. It's nonsensical, right? CD Projekt Red, all the non-games that never got made, it's just money's just flowing. Netflix was making any show you threw at it because mountains of money was being flown into Netflix, right? To put out more propaganda. And so mass credit, which ends up doing what? Improperly spending, money just flows straight into the stock market, increasing the inequality as the richest get richer, right? Taking free money, sticking it in their own pockets, buying back their own stock, right? So China's credit growth slowing massively is like a very smart move with a civilization that has a communist party, which is filled with the needs and desires filtered through a system with Chinese characteristics that brings the actual desires and wants. They actually frequently do mass public surveys, the Chinese government, like 30 times more than anywhere else, because they want to make sure that what they're doing is in line with what the people want, actually. It's actually more democratic than any Western country. China is way more democratic than any Western country will ever be. Any red, white, and blue flag, British or American or otherwise, will never be close. So they can learn, but they can't really replicate that system. But what they want is rein the finances in, arrest the corporate executives and corrupt elites. Amanda Seyfried is in that movie where, she made up a fake company that was selling a home blood test advanced medical technology product that didn't exist. Look at how, and then one person got arrested. That's just one out of thousands. She's the small potatoes. That's like the one bottom tier programmer at Goldman Sachs that got arrested, and thousands of executives and the richest, most powerful, all running the show still, right? And so China does the opposite. China arrests all the most powerful, richest. Jack Ma is scared of the Chinese government. That's why rich people, they go to China now. They're like, oh my God, it's authoritarian. It's because white rich people can't do whatever they want there. Whereas they go to London, they go to New York, they go to Los Angeles, they go to US, France, Europe, they do whatever the fuck they want to the detriment of everyone else. And China is authoritarian for wealthy white dudes who should feel, they deserve the spanking that they're getting. They're not even getting beheaded necessarily. Sometimes they do. But, they're just like, you can't commit mass fraud that hurts people and steal money and be a racist piece of shit. Nazism is illegal in China. It's encouraged in the US and Europe. So, COP27, US adheres to reparations funds for countries impacted by climate crisis to inclusion of China. But in fact, China actually, slowed down in total greenhouse gases, right? So China, the U.S. grew by 1.5% emissions. U.S. is firing up coal plants. It's not putting it on advertisement, but the U.S. and Europe are running out of energy because of their ridiculous, not needless warfare to continue colonialism, right? That they have backed and supported with the proxy war against Russia in Europe, which has caused the destruction of trade between them, the gas that they need, natural gas. So they're firing up coal plants in Europe. Germany's firing up massive coal plants. They're chopping all their forests down so they can not freeze this winter all over Europe, right? With their wood stoves and their massive wood burning plants, literally chopping all the trees down, as if you didn't deforest Europe enough. Now you're going to deforest everything else. You just planted a bunch of trees. Now you're going to chop them all down because you started a needless fucking war. Europe U.S. is increasing its emissions. Europe is generally increasing their emissions because of their puppeteer, being a puppet of the United States, going into this war that's causing their energy crises, and they need to supplement. They need to put dirty energy to fix that. And China has actually, despite it still being developing, it's still per capita consuming way less than the United States, less than half per capita emissions of the United States, and it's already cutting back. So again, that's called using state-owned public enterprises, not private capitalist enterprises, right? And the ones that are private are severely constrained and regulated and controlled, and the wealthy capitalists are severely punished for going outside of the rules. Unlike the United States, which there has no fucking laws when it comes to the millionaire and billionaire class. Whoever pays the most money buys the court. That's how I saw the global heist went in 08, 09. In case for people who, most people don't. Anyways, I'm not going to That's a whole 4-hour stream I'm not going to do. But the point is that like the wealthy and powerful are actually punished. Ideally, they would not exist, but under the current geopolitical, realities that are on the ground, where you need international trade, tech transfer, countries are still having to deal with very belligerent capitalist, colonial, racist countries constantly trying to rein you in. China would not need a military. They spend 1/3 what the U.S. spends, but they have to spend some because they have to have a deterrent. Because the U.S. is literally it literally in all of its papers says it's the number one target is China. More than half of all the military bases are literally ringing in China. In Afghanistan, in the south, in Guam, in Okinawa, all over the southern, northern, west, east border. It's just the U.S. is just a giant anti-China policy. All they put out in the Western media is jerking off to bullshit articles about how China's dying. That's all. That's the American dream is China fall down. That's the European dream. China, everything gonna get bad. That's the London dream. That's all they got. China is gonna fall and we're gonna sit on its dead body. That's all they got. Right. So like so you have to have some amount of development and then some amount of it's actually some of the continued interplay with Western companies operating in China is so that the U.S. cannot the neocon, because it's also schizophrenic. It's no coordination. You have neocon military industrial complex. You got the fucking people that want the second coming of Jesus Christ, right? By starting nuclear war. You got unhinged people. There's Dr. Strangelove, and then you got Elon. I can't run my own freaking Twitter account. I don't know how to code. You got incoherence in the West. There are semi-competent and then completely incompetent people running DC and Wall Street. It's laughable, right? And so the functioning, competent civilization that's China, it's got to go like, well, it's about entrapping certain amounts of Wall Street to pressure them, because unless they want to lose all their money, they have to keep operating with China. They can't start shooting wars. Otherwise, there would be proxy wars all over the fucking place with China. It's literally, that's part of the, anyway, that's, the point is that like they have to, countries, Hawaii is one of them, has to make trade-off in the 1800s, have to do things that they don't necessarily want to do. People have to do things that don't necessarily want to do under the circumstances of just very terrible circumstances that are not in your favor, like a white supremacist, capitalist, colonizer, warmonger-filled Earth, right, coming out of the West. So you have to like make these trade-offs. But ideally, we wouldn't, there wouldn't be no billionaires, or there would be much less in total inequality, and they are like moving in the direction as fast as possible. Like they probably could do better, and they could do way worse. Like they could be like the United States, moving as fast as possible to hell, right? Completely run by a completely wealth-captured, undemocratic plutocracy, just like Europe, right? And anyway, so that's enough about that. It's already 2:00, so I should probably end. But that's like some of the present day reality for those who don't gonna get that from most places. I mean, I know most people have already checked out. I started talking about Asia and everybody left. All the white racists left. I just wanted to hear you talk about white guys with robot arms, dude. I thought you were the cyberpunk king or something. That's all I want to hear about. I don't care about Asians or black people. I'm a white cyberpunk consumer. I just want to see cool robot arm shit, man. So I'm sorry that, I'm not sorry that I scared you off, but but the Peripheral is a show that deals with artificial intelligence. It does deal with artificial intelligence, environmental and pandemic apocalypses, but the point why I go into all that is that Anglo-Sino, the US and the UK as the major Anglo entities, obviously Canada, New Zealand, but Australia, but the US leading all of them, and the UK, its dark parent, or its horrible parent, let's say. Anglo-Sino challenges are not unmeetable, but the advances that are dystopian, right, are labeled dystopian, like artificial intelligence is just going to be bad, environment is just going to go to crap. The real challenge is not the artificial intelligence. The real challenge is not how do we invent a technology that can, or technologies that help us transition into a green future where the planet doesn't die, right? Challenge is not really, I would argue, it's not even really how do we control, stop people from suffering and dying and becoming mass disabled from pandemic, right? The challenge is actually, I would argue, the East-West was, it is an Eastern challenge. It's the East-West global counter-imperialist, socialist, and multipolar countries, and the West unable or unwilling, some combination of the two, to understand and to learn from them. That's really the challenge. The climate, if you just got rid of all the military on the earth, stop this needless colonial, imperial, neo-colonial struggles, climate would not be actually that difficult to deal with, right? If you got rid of the people working together, to regulate the climate. Yeah, of course, the capitalism is part of that, right? But that's already being dealt with in the East, right? And if the West could learn from the East, they can't copy it, right? But they could learn from it. Artificial intelligence isn't necessarily the end of everything, right? But if the West doesn't learn about also how we can use artificial intelligence under a heavily regulated system of socialism that makes sure people don't get displaced and thrown out into the cold, make sure that tech companies don't, again, it's I'm sorry, but it requires a government. It just requires an actually good government, but they don't really have any of those, right? So you don't have good examples. But the fact that there are no good examples in the West, right? The corrupt metropolitan, horrible police, and the kleptocracy, the kleptocracy, the corrupt London police, and the corrupt research institute, is kind of like unhinged mega tech companies. And there's no existing Western government that is at all functional or at all good, period, right? So you have to look that way. You can't just Asia is mysterious. And you definitely can't just, Asians are just bad and they should be like us. No, you should be more like them, in fact. You should be more like us, because I'm part Asian, right? Asian and Pacific Islander, we all get lumped together. But it's really the opposite. The insistence that China has to be free and democratic and have human rights like Europe and America is but it's kind of how do you tell people that are so fucking drunk on their own hubris and their own school system and their own media and their own propaganda, their own history, their own science fiction books and their fiction books, their entertainment and everything else, that are so fucking drunk on their superiority that they have to learn things from people that they have been led to believe are backwards, barbaric, even though they don't say it out loud, savage, unadvanced, primitive, blah, 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 right? You have to learn from those people that you have been calling backwards, terrible, immoral, all those things, right? But there's not really an option. You can't really maybe I'll just invent my way out snorting my own copium farts. That's not going to work. It's literally there cannot be, certainly not in the West, there cannot be a technological, and possibly in the world, there cannot be a positive, livable, thrivable, positive, I'm an indigenous person, so indigenous future, a better, good future that isn't a hellhole. You say cyberpunk is cautionary. Well, what are you being cautioned towards? You can't just be if you just keep on snorting up your cautionary tales, then you're just a masochistic, self-hating doomer, and that's not anything. That's not cyberpunk. That's just normal white selfish bullshit. So, right? It's what are you moving towards? The lesson is not in London. The lesson is not in New York. It's not in the left, the liberal, or the right of any of those places. It's not in Germany. It's not in Italy. It's not in Greece. It's not in the past of the Roman Nazi capitalist imperialist Greece and Rome. And it's not in the present Nazi literal, the fascist was just elected Rome. It's not anywhere in the Western world. It's in the place you don't want to look. So dealing with the racism, which is a major part of what stops people from learning, right? Not just anti-Asian racism, cyberpunk, but just generally, is what stops the education from happening. So it's really like, well, Silver Spook, I don't care about that racism. Let's not talk about the id poll. Let's not talk about the racism. No, like that is like fundamental. Can't get past that. You're never gonna improve. You're just gonna fall off into a sad little pit, and it will take longer for the indigenous, the Black, Asian, and non-white world to fix your problems that you continue to cause. You know, it's like just like start like actually paddling in the boat. While you just like sticking your leg out, putting your head in the water, dragging the boat down. You know, put your fucking head in the boat and like help us paddle to move in the right direction. You know, but that's the West is like taking its legs and its arms and just trying to drag the boat down as much as possible by crying in the water, like, oh my God, we're all gonna drown. Like, no, we're like getting the boat to safety and we're all like trying to paddle in this direction, and you're just like over there crying and trying to attack us, like whacking us on the head with the paddle. Like, you're never gonna stop the rise of the China. You're not gonna stop the rise of the East. You're done. You know, I mean, you're not done. I mean, you can be around, but you're not gonna lead anything anymore. Stop whacking us in the head unless you want us all to drown. That's the nuclear war, right? That's like, you know, so it's kind of like, and then that's also the climate war. Like, I'm gonna keep over-consuming and bullshitting and spewing racist propaganda about socialist, actual functioning countries until we all drown. That's some people. And anyway, long story short is that's crap. And so that's why like Ash is like on point when it's like, you know, all we're doing here is we're continuing imperialism, and that's crap. So I'm glad that scene in the Peripheral happened and it wasn't cut. And that's the end of the stream because it's already after 2. Anyways, so everything that we do here is always supported. I'm gonna get. I went on for a little bit longer than I wanted to, so I've been a little bit more spiraling around the topics than I wanted to, but you know, that's how it goes. Neofeud is a cyberpunk game though that is on Steam and also on Itch Audio. It does support everything that we do here when my computer isn't crashing and stopping me from producing Neofeud 2. It is a game that does deal with questions of sentience, artificial intelligence, and also mass obsolescence, you know, digitization, robot-controlled militaries. It does with all of those kind of fun. What if I had a robot arm? But it also does it in a more satirical format and also in a form that's it also deals with the problems of the racism, the capitalism, the police-industrial complex, continued indigenous genocide by the government taking the children in places like the U.S. and Canada of indigenous people, and also the non-justice of the court system. And all that kind of thing is dealt with in this game. So if that sounds interesting, consider picking up Neofeud. And sorry, my computer is going very, 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 very. I think I opened too many tabs and I said too many words. I'm gonna blame the CIA. I opened too much Jackie Chan, and Jackie Chan is like too based for this streaming platform. So, hold on one second. Yeah, I have too many tabs open. What's up, Strin and Big Teal? Good to see both of you, as always. I may be showing up at the Black Power Media at some point in the future, possibly. So I see that they've been talking a lot about media and why the politics of very popular films and media generally and entertainment is important. And obviously, that's what I talk about all the time on these YouTube channels. So that would be cool, but we'll see about that. Neofeud is again a game that you can get on Steam and on Itch. If you get it on Itch, don't forget that you can get it for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Also, every sale does support what we do here at the Silver Spook Cooperative. Keeps us continuing to make shows, education, games, eating and having house and clothing and all those things that we need. So consider supporting us at the non-capitalist worker cooperative of the Silver Spook Games. And also, you can get the game on sale. You can also get games like Ninja Star, which is a science fictional game about an empire that arrives to eradicate and plunder, and you must heal the land and the people, prevent erasure of your native language and culture, and confront the invaders before it is too late. So this is a game that is science. It's a shorter 1 hour long science fiction adventure, but deals with all these kind of topics from in a science fictional space Star Wars 2001, a Space Odyssey sort of genre, dealing with indigenous struggle against empires. Also, you can get games like Decolonizer. We talked about Jackie Chan plays a Vietnamese ex-communist fighter, right, in The Foreigner, and you can play a Vietnamese communist fighter and a woman fighter as well at that in Decolonizers, where you kick capitalist colonizer butts out of Vietnam. And also, this is I talk about anti-Asian hate, right? This game is super anti-Asian hate. This is a game. This is the only game that tells the truth about an Asian country that the U.S. doesn't like, or Asian countries generally. This is the only game in existence that's honest about the history of Vietnam. Like I'm just gonna say that, and I'll let other people debate me about whether that's false. But I'm gonna wager that. You literally kill the U.S. Imperial stormtroopers. You blow up John McCain flying his plane out of the sky. In this video game, it's a video game, and the West is shown to be who they actually are, which is a bunch of murdering, human rights destroying, freedom destroying capitalist assholes. So yeah, that's the, and also it stars a Vietnamese communist woman, Luna Oi, and it's made by a native Hawaiian under U.S. colonization. So there's no more. I would say if you're at a university, there is no more decolonial game than Decolonizers. So you are a hypocrite unless you buy that game. If you talk about decolonization, if you ever done a non-acknowledgement and you don't have decolonizers, you're a hypocrite. I'm just gonna say it. So, Pigeon with Gun is an action comedy game where you play a pigeon with a gun, and you fight gajillionaires, lion, liberal, Valentine card, politicians, and tons of corporate-owned cops in a cyberpunk dystopia. I was talking a lot about cyberpunk. So this is my action comedy cyberpunk game. That's the only good cyberpunk game is this game. Okay. That's the only, people say, Silver Spook, don't be ashamed, just don't be ashamed to just, to put your best foot forward. So I'm just going to say this is the best cyberpunk game ever made. Cyberpunk 2077 is a joke. Anyways, also we have Woman. It's a book by Holly that is my partner, is by a woman raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. It is a story of the Bible from the eyes of Mary, and it's about dunking on this patriarchal sort of culture, and it is free, or you can throw us some money when you pick it up. Also, you can support us at patreon.com/Neofeud. On Patreon, become an ongoing supporter, help us keep doing the work that we do. Get access to the Silver Spook Discord, behind the scenes work on what we're doing here at the Silver Spook games, in the cooperative, and in other ways. Also, you can follow at Silver Spook Games. Everybody's going to Mastodon, and by everybody, I mean less than 1% of Twitter, actually, and most of them are going to leave soon because Twitter is not probably going to die. People are just being ridiculous. I'm going to talk more about that later on. I appreciate many people, like 200, 300 people have followed me recently, so thanks for people who have followed me. Please don't just leave Mastodon. I have been on Mastodon posting every day for like 2 to 3 years straight, so I don't want to hear this, I'm leaving and I'm going to use Mastodon. I'm going to be so good now. Be full of shit, man. I've been there the whole time. I don't believe 1% or even 0.3% of Twitter is going to leave and actually use Mastodon. These people are fucking bullshit artists. And I know that because I watch you come and go. I've always been there. So anyways, I also use Twitter though. You can at Silver Spook Games at octodon.social, at Silver Spook Games at mastodon.social. I have 2 Mastodon accounts. 2. I post every day on both. At Silver Spook Guy is the when Twitter doesn't die and everybody comes back crying because they can't post hot takes about bananas or be mad white vegans attacking indigenous people. When everybody comes back to Twitter, you can follow at Silver Spook Guy and at Silver Spook Games minus the E in silver for the games related stuff. You can also follow Silver Spook at Facebook. Silver Spook Games on Facebook, Silver Spook on Instagram, and speaking of cyberpunk, because I talked a lot about OG cyberpunk stuff like in my past at the beginning of the stream. Then I went way off, but Terminus Cyberstar is another cyberpunk game that is based on a Deus Ex mod, Terminus Machina, that I made about a decade ago. It is a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim, and it's like Cyberpunk 2077. The Deus Ex game's System Shock. It is nearly completed with the exception of testing and optimization. I myself and the producer are both non-white people, so there's that as well. Aaron Victoria is the producer who informs me that we are nearly completed. The team is about 5 or 6 people. I'm the lead writer, content director, have done a great job of taking this world and realizing it based on, you see, I didn't need an AI game generator what I feed a sentences to. I fed 30,000, 50,000 words of game design document into a human team of level designers. They use AI as well, right? But there's level designers and artificial intelligence programmers and 2D and 3D artists that worked on this game. And if you would like to check that game out when it is as it nears completion, you can follow this and join the Discord over there. Also, don't forget you can also follow who else is there? Holly. You have to make sure I do that one at the Tech Fairy. Holly is mod voice actor and partner here at Silver Spook Games, producer and writer for Zion Attack or The Lounge. Holy shit, I'm a little bit over time. 12/20 December 23rd. Don't forget, there's going to be the generic winter holiday special, so that's coming up very soon. And follow Holly and Zion Attack for that. Holly's also a writer and educator, parent and child primary caregiver here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, tweeting stuff like that. That's important for people to know. And yes, thank you so much to Big Teal, Stren Sam, Holly, everyone else who has come in, hang out, checked out the stream. You see, Big Teal knows. Big Teal watches me post every day. Lots of people come, they post, they give up after 1 week, week and a half, 2 days. Can't even figure out the interface. I'm fucking every day, man. I'm the Energizer Bunny. When everyone is saying the wrong shit, I'm saying the truth like a motherfucker on this Silver Spook stream. Even when 2 people are watching this stream. Like me and my robot friend, Stan over there, and Holly. And then when they're not, I'm still saying it. And then 50 people watch the stream, 200 people watch the video, I'm still saying it. And then they go away. I'm the Energizer I'm the Energizer decoloninator. You know what I'm saying? On every platform, all of them, all at once. And so is Big Teal, and so is Holly, of course. And so is Stern Sam. Everybody on this list is very awesome, though, because without your support, it will be hard to keep doing these streams, and maybe we wouldn't. And we wouldn't be making the games, and we possibly might be homeless. So thanks a lot to all your continued support, Patreon patrons, for the work that we do here. And it is massively appreciated. Many of these people are, in fact, longtime William Gibson board people. And, we love all of the William Gibson board people. We love our William Gibson. I know I threw some shade at some people, but, these are all in-house, these a lot of people, literally, Minkzilla, Belinda and Taylor, many of these people are people that have been supporting for 5-6 years. They've literally given thousands of dollars, and they're like William Gibson board people, So it's all good. It was massively appreciated. Until next time, keep your shades polished and be excellent to each other. And we will be back in the evening for something. We'll see what I'm gonna talk about. I don't know. We'll do something fun.